Yes.
Dave? I've got them all, the little ones up top. How do I enlarge that down below?
Upright, speaker view, or
Gallery view? Okay. Aha, there you all are. Thank you. What do we got? 57? Anybody open up for breakfast this morning?
I think Tuckaway was open.
Yeah.
And Pete's, I think. Pete's was open this morning.
Yeah. I go out for breakfast. That'd be a nice change. Can't see my flag back there. Huh? There it is. Okay. There's the flag. All right.
Ray, you'll be happy to know we were able to try to do some fishing up at Redfish Pass yesterday.
Yeah.
We caught a bunch of bait fish. A lot of sea turtles, though.
Yeah, I saw some video of Stacy from Chuckers put up a video about the sea turtles this morning.
Oh, right, yeah, there was a lot of them up there.
They said they were mating, and I also heard there was a manatee herd up there mating up there somewhere as well. But,
saw a couple of them. Didn't see any mating, but did see a few manatee.
if you've never seen that, that's quite a sight to behold.
I have actually, we witnessed it a couple years ago in the Back Bay, and of course, not knowing exactly what we were witnessing, it looked like it was some stranded animals.
Yeah.
So we did our due duty and called it in, and they informed us that we were watching something different. So,
well, one could make that mistake. Years ago, there was about 30 some odd dolphins stranded themselves out in front of the Holiday Inn, and got them off, and they went over Sanibel, stranded again. Then they went down the Keys, and a bunch of them died. But they had a couple weeks later, there were some manatees up on the sandbar behind our place down there at Island's End, and I thought it was more strandings as well. I got a little closer. I said, "Ooh, that's not a stranding at all." Anyhow,
yeah,
okay.
It's interesting in nature that fighting and mating seem to look very similar.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm going to leave it right there. Okay, we ready to go?
Yep.
You on, Madam Clerk?
Yes, Mayor, I am here.
Okay. I'll call the meeting to order. Good morning, everyone. This is a regularly scheduled meeting of the Town Council of the Town of Fort Myers Beach. It's Monday, May 4th, 2020, and it's 9:01. We'll start off with an invocation by the clerk, and then we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance.
It's usually God and country. Almighty God, we welcome you among us today and celebrate the gift of life that you have lavished upon each of us. We ask that you open our ears so that we may hear your voice. Open our minds so that we may receive your eternal wisdom. Open our spirits so that we may know your leadership and guidance. And open our hearts so that we may receive your wonderful love. Amen.
Amen. Amen. If you join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag.
United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, then next item on the agenda is the approval of final agenda.
Have they been let in?
Not yet. They didn't tell me to, but we'll make it.
Yeah.
Is there a motion to approve the
Mr.
final
Mayor?
agenda?
John Herron's here.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
I just had a question on the approving the agenda. Are we going to have an option today to discuss additional sort of nuances with respect to the coronaviruses? And if it's not on the official agenda, can we actually discuss and vote on things? I'm just curious, sort of more of a parliamentary inquiry.
I don't know why he's in there.
Well, typically, if it's not on the agenda, we don't vote on it typically, because that precludes the public from commenting on something ahead of time. But if you want to discuss some things about the virus, maybe and it's not on the agenda, maybe I could suggest that you should bring it up under your items and reports at that time of the meeting. Would that be fine?
That'd be fine. Thank you.
Yeah, typically I'd say, Jim, I mean, unless it was sort of an emergency or something that we really had to get done.
Yeah. You know, what I was going to suggest, it really isn't too onerous. I was just going to suggest, and maybe we don't even need to do it formally. I just noticed, we all know the restaurants, some of them are trying to open today, and a lot of our neighboring communities have made adjustments, if you will, in terms of giving them some grace in terms of their outdoor space and how they utilize that. And I looked at a number of the different communities that are doing it, and they're doing it all in different ways. And I just was thinking that we might, in order just to cover all of our bases, and I haven't seen, quite frankly, a lot of demand for this additional grace, but I think that may come up. I just was going to see if we could, as a council, authorize Roger to show some grace, at least during the phase 1 period for the governor's executive order, if there are certain restaurants that need a little bit of grace with respect to expanding their outdoor seating and it doesn't impact public safety or public health. I just wanted to allow our town manager to show a little grace on our enforcement dynamic, if it makes sense. I don't know if he needs that formal authorization or not. I just thought I'd just mention that as a topic for today.
I'm guessing that he already has that authority to do that, but if it's the consensus of the council to allow the town manager to do that, I'm fine with that.
There's one more aspect to that I'd like to add, because we don't have a lot of right of way where there's businesses that are controlled by the town. I mean, we have Old San Carlos and maybe Times Square. But the other thing I actually talked about was retailers, that maybe allow retailers to put some of their product out on sidewalks. The downside is, of course, that like on Old San Carlos, you're limiting space for pedestrians, which may hinder social distancing.
Right.
And again, I like that idea, Bill. Maybe we just leave it up to the town manager to see where it makes sense and where it doesn't, but also just to empower him to have a little bit of, to give a little grace to those vendors and restaurant owners where it makes sense.
Okay, that sounds fine with me. There's something you don't hear every day, Roger. Your name and grace mentioned in the same phrase. But,
yeah, we'll record that.
all right, is there a motion to approve the final agenda?
I'll make a motion.
So moved. Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Any objection? That passes unanimously. From there, we'll go on to public comment. Madam Clerk?
Yes, Mayor. We have 3 people that are wanting to make public comment. The first is a phone number. It's 954-489-7757.
Okay.
That person is still muted.
I got him in.
Okay, we're waiting for public comment from 954-895-7757. Go ahead, please.
No, this is Bob. I was just checking in.
It's Bob Lang.
Okay, all right. He's showing twice. The next is phone number 440-391-4100. And they're still. Go ahead, 440-391-4100. We're ready for your public comment.
Yes, I have no comment. This is Steve Winsky from the Corradino Group. I was trying to listen in onto the meeting.
Thank you. The next person in the waiting room is identified as Cook, C-O-O-K. And Cook seems to have left, so I'm not sure.
I can see this person and it shows she's connecting.
What's this one right here?
It looks like her audio is connecting.
There we go.
There she is.
Now she needs to unmute.
She's muting herself.
She's, Cook, you seem to be muting yourself.
There, okay.
It's unmuted.
Okay. Are you here to make public comment?
I am one of the auditors. I am here with Wade Sansbury with Malden.
Thank you.
All right.
Dan?
We see Dan in the waiting room.
Dan will be there.
I don't know whether he's here for public comment, whether it's Mr. Hughes. I don't know who it is. It's just identified as Dan.
I think that's Dan Hughes. We'll wait on that one. Are there any email comments from the public?
Yes, I do have emails. That concludes those that are in the waiting room. So I'll go to the emails we received. The first is from Chuck Bodenhafer, and actually there are two from Chuck. This one came in Monday, April the 27th. On Monday, I attempted to join the council meeting via Zoom. I sat for over 30 minutes with a black screen saying the host had to invite me. I could not watch the meeting. That is ridiculous. I was forced to leave the meeting and go to YouTube to listen. After 2+ hours, I was finally asked for my comments. As I quickly tried to get back on Zoom, it took too long, so you assumed I had left the meeting. I had not. Why would the host not let me in Zoom to listen while awaiting my turn to speak? Those Zoom meetings should be open to all the residents on Zoom so we can speak when called. This violates my freedom of speech. Times are tough enough without the town trying to violate this basic right. Please send to all town council members immediately. Mayor, I'd like to add that.
I just want to add something first. We don't typically answer, but the town is not trying to violate anybody's rights. Okay, let's get that straightened out right now. Go ahead.
Well, Mayor, this particular meeting, Mr. Bodenhafer did join the meeting, and we asked him to speak, and he did not speak.
All right, let's go on to his second.
He did have the opportunity.
Let's go on to his second email.
There's another email from Mr. Bodenhafer. It came in Saturday, May the 2nd. It has been sent to the 5 council members. The subject is Zoom free speech. Would you like me to read this since you've all received it? Do you still want me to read it?
Sure, go ahead and read it.
I listened to your Zoom meeting on 4/27. As I was never allowed to speak, I sent an email to Roger expressing my concern and requested he send my email to all council members. I also mentioned this to you when we met by chance on the beach. Did you receive my message from Roger? Did all council members get their copy? Then on May 1st, I also listened to the Zoom meeting. This time I listened on my iPad and on YouTube from my phone. Once again, I was not called on for my comments. Thus, I have not been allowed to speak at 2 consecutive meetings. Who decided to not allow constituents to view the meeting on Zoom? This requires any constituent to utilize 2 devices. As mentioned in my email to Roger, I never dropped off the meeting on 4/27. I tried to get back to the Zoom meeting to no avail. If the host would allow us to view the meeting, we could be ready to respond when asked to join, instead of watching a blank screen with no idea of what had been going on. I have no idea why I was not allowed to speak at either meeting. Why did Roger not, I assume, forward my first email to all council members as I requested? Why is the host not allowing constituents to view meetings on Zoom? I respectfully request you to share this email in its entirety to all council members and my email sent to Roger originally. In addition, please have read into the record at your next meeting.
And so they have. Just so there's no confusion for the people out there, we have had a little difficulty from time to time with this Zoom business, whether it's our end or your end, whatever. It's not the easiest of things to do. But if you want to guarantee that your comments will be heard by the town council, please send an email to the town and they'll be read with everyone else's into the record. That way you are guaranteed to have your comment. Okay, Madam Clerk, continue, please.
It's public comment at fmbgov.com.
There you go. Thank you, Bill.
This next email is from Kathy Busald, B-U-S-A-L-D. I am a recently retired English teacher and timeshare owner at Lahaina Inn Resort, 5580 Estero on Fort Myers Beach. And I am writing to request that you vote to allow owners of timeshare units to occupy the unit/weeks they have purchased and pay taxes on. I have been an owner for more than 40 years and look forward to spending a week in June at my condo each year. If I am not allowed to occupy my unit, of which I have a deed, I am denied the ability to enjoy my annual time during that specific week, while still being required to pay the annual taxes and maintenance fees associated with ownership. I do not understand the initial mandate to close the beach, but since March, there has been extensive education and recommendations by the CDC, and American citizens have demonstrated as a whole that they understand and can adhere to the safety measures recommended to keep down the spread of the virus. I've grown up vacationing on FMB, and each year, and I look forward to enjoying the beach and supporting the various businesses on the island and hope that I will be able to do so again this June. Thank you, Kathy Busald, Houston, Texas.
Thank you.
This next email is from Scott McGovney, M-C-G-O-V-N-E-Y. Subject concern. We have been watching the Fort Myers Beach Town Council and the restrictions and sanctions that they have imposed on the island. At the meeting this past Friday, they made it clear that they would open the island to hotels, but not to the timeshare owners on May 15. We have been owners at the Kalua Beach Club for 20 plus years and have enjoyed many years there. We find that this decision is not a fair and one that segregates the owners from the regular hotel guests. Understandably, this is a trying time, but to be discriminatory in the opening of hotels, but not that of the owners of timeshare units, is just plain wrong. We hope that this can be resolved and look forward to hearing from you in regards to the town council's ruling. Scott and Cindy McGovney. The next one is kind of long. It was also sent to the 5 council members. It's from Shadle, S-H-A-D-L-E. Subject, public comment for May 4 town council meeting. And it's kind of long.
You want to put the timer on?
Dear council, I hope you'll indulge me with a little more time than 3 minutes, as this first paragraph is a comment about my inability to speak at the last meeting, and not by my doing. I called in to voice my public comment by phone on May 1, and there were 14 others in the room. At least that's what the automated message said. I, nor the others, were called upon either prior to your vote on the beach reopening, nor after, even though the secretary addressed council after the vote to let the council know there were phone callers still waiting. After the secretary read the emailed public comment, neither she, the mayor, nor any other council members asked if there were any phone callers. It went straight to a vote. I did send an email to each council member during the meeting, but I sent only an abbreviated message. I'll address now what I would have addressed then, as my opinion still remains the same. I feel the town council and our county commissioners made a mistake by reopening our beaches too soon. I understand this issue from all perspectives, the emotional side, the human nature side, from the financial and business side, as I own a multifamily beach property plus owned and operated several businesses in the last 42 years. I also understand it from the scientific, health, and safety perspective. It's human nature to be impatient, to want freedom, to get bored, to not be told what to do or where not to go. I do get it. I also understand we want fresh air, to exercise and be around other people, to socialize. I'm no different. I love the island, the beach, the people, the social life, and I'm dying to go listen to a band and have a cold beer. I've owned boats, wave runners, motorcycles, and businesses, so I'm just like all of you and most of every other human. I love what we all love, but more than the wants to enjoy a beer, a band, a moment, or an hour, or a day at the beach, I want to live longer. I want to see many more days and years and listen to many more bands and see beach sunsets. By opening up our beaches at this time to anyone from anywhere will only aid in the spread of the virus, putting our hospitals, first responders, healthcare workers, business owners, employees, and most of all, the people who live here at much greater risk. The national and local cases are still rising. There still is not adequate testing, and this virus is more contagious than any virus we've seen in any of our lifetimes. The experts are still predicting a greater wave of infections to come. Inviting visitors, possibly from the most infected areas of Florida, to come visit us when their own leaders and our governor still are keeping those beaches closed is going to bring more virus to our town and going to infect people in our pharmacies, grocery stores, and to each and every business and beach goer, no matter if they are another visitor, someone who works here or lives here. Even though social distancing is possible in some areas of our island, it's impossible in small beach parks. There are people biking, walking, and running in very close proximity to others. I walk and bike daily, and I experience people distancing and others totally ignoring it. Some wearing masks.
Excuse me, Madam Clerk, is there much more to go on that?
There's about 3 more paragraphs.
Well, he's exceeded the time limit, and the fact that we've all got that email and read it already, the town council, I'm going to say we move on to the next one with all due.
Very good.
Mr. Shedd.
Mr. Mayor?
And thank you for the comment. Yes, sir.
I just wanted to give the staff a heads up. I've gotten a number of texts that this is not currently being shown on channel 98 on Comcast. So I don't know what the relationship is with the town and Comcast. Yeah. If they want to convey that to someone, that might be helpful.
Yeah, I've been hearing
Thank
that.
you, Council Member. Yes, we are addressing that immediately.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Okay, Michelle, if you want to continue.
Yes, the next email is from Carmen Sarge, S-A-R-G-E. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to share my opinion. I last wrote to the council on April 26. You might recall that I have owned multiple timeshare weeks on Fort Myers Beach for 35 years. I listened intensely to your discussion on Friday. I believe the council's decision to go beyond the governor's recommendations and exclude owners of timeshares from occupying their property is an unnecessary overreach. Hundreds of thousands of dollars are being taken from owners for each week because of that restriction. The Resort Condominiums International directory lists 18 timeshare resorts on FMB. Vice Mayor Hossafrost, I believe, proposed an intelligent and workable motion by limiting access to property owners and excluding rentals. This is easily achievable because each property is actively managed. That management also can control social distancing and other health-related issues on property, which was a voiced concern during your discussion. Further, I believe that the Florida governor's stay-at-home policy is still in effect. It limits persons traveling to Florida from states where the COVID-19 infection is worse than Florida. Those travelers are required to shelter in place for 14 days. They will not travel to FMB just to sit in their condo. This also could easily be controlled by the condo association management. Please consider the potential impact of owners each week providing financial support to the restaurants and retail establishments on FMB. I am asking that you consider a new motion allowing timeshare owner access to their units. then both owners and associations might begin to plan for the future. Respectfully, Carmen Sarge. Comcast issue. Okay. And Comcast should be back on for you.
I just got that text that people are able to see it again.
Thank you for that. The next.
Welcome back, everybody. Okay, go
This
ahead.
next email is from James Murley, Murley. Subject: timeshare owner discrimination. If my interpretation is correct, the town council has voted once again to not allow tax-paying owners of timeshares to use their deeded property. Assuming my interpretation to be accurate, that means that timeshares are to remain closed until June 26 or even possibly later. In listening to the May 1 meeting and previous ones, the fear is that timeshare owners and their family members will swamp the island with visitors from the United States. Yet the town council dismisses those exact same fears and votes to allow hotels to accept reservations and occupancy beginning May 15. A quick TripAdvisor map review of hotels directly on or within a 2-mile radius of the island quickly shows hundreds, if not thousands, of hotel rooms now readily available for occupancy on May 15. Using the same highly questionable logic used by the town council regarding timeshare, why is it believed that those numerous hotel rooms and their occupants will not swamp the island as well? Or simply put another way, what is the difference? Again, I'm not a lawyer, but I find nowhere in any of the Governor DeSantis declarations that he ever included the closure of timeshares, but the council decided to do so on their own based on what? Keeping timeshares closed beyond May 15 is not only bad for the timeshare owners, but equally, if not more so, and establishments on the island. Your discrimination of timeshares based on your assumptions and little, if any, facts. Thank you for your reconsideration. This next is from Jennifer Rusk. Are you okay? The subject is Mulholland Award nomination. I'm so lucky to be a part of this beautiful community as a full-time resident.
Excuse me, Michelle. Should that be read during the, that's an agenda item? Should we read that during the agenda item?
No, I don't think so.
Councilmember, I'll do as the council would like. However, this is the time for public comment, and the Mulholland nomination is on the administrative agenda.
If it came in as public comment, just read it as public comment, please.
Thank you. I'm so lucky to be a part of this beautiful community as a full-time resident. I'm also fortunate to be a part of the Marine Resource Task Force and would like to nominate the businesses and staff here on Fort Myers Beach. Their strength has been nothing but stellar. I have so much respect and admiration for them all. They come to serve in all seasons. They serve us in busy times, slow times, and now we see they do in bad times. Thank you to everyone in my community who has stepped up. I appreciate you for all your service. Thank you. Stay well. Jennifer Rusk. And the last email I have is from Wendy DeGaetano, DeGaetano. Subject: Marine Resource Task Force. I would be most appreciative if I could be included for consideration for this vacancy at the May 4th meeting of the Town Council. My updated application and additional information was emailed to Amy Baker. I had just received that this morning. However, as you know, the packet has already been put forward for the appointments. She left her phone number if someone desires. And that completes the public comments that I have received by email.
All right, thank you, Madam Clerk. Now, just to make sure, there's no one else waiting in the waiting room. That we don't want to exclude anyone.
It's just showing Dan.
Okay. All right, good enough. Then we'll move on. Thank you very much for that. The next item is local achievements and recognitions. We'll start with you, Councilman Allers.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I would like to recognize Base. I think they've done a great job over the weekend, keeping an eye on what people are doing on the beach. Even though most people I witnessed on the beach were doing exactly what they were asked to do. So it was a pleasure to see. And I'd also like to recognize the restaurants for businesses that are being opened up today. They've been very patient with the decisions that have had to be made. And I look forward to them opening and start generating some revenue.
Thank you. Councilman Adderholt.
I just parallel with what Dan said. I got to thinking this weekend as everything's, particularly the beaches opened up, I got to thinking how much I missed the beach and appreciated the beach after the red tide, blue algae disaster. And then I began to, as we see the optimism again coming to our island and things are beginning to open up, I began to realize how much I appreciate our local businesses. And I got me to thinking, I think Dan's talked about this in the past and others have, that how important it is that we support our local businesses. It's so easy to drive off the island. And I listen to people who drive all the way to Naples and Bonita Springs, which is great for restaurants. But if we could, over these next few months, make a concerted effort to support our local businesses, not just restaurants, but retail and hardware stores, everything we can to support our local businesses. Well, not only is it the right thing to do, but we would also have those resources available when times are good. Because if we lose these businesses now, as we all know, it'll be difficult to get them back. So again, just anything we can do to buy local and buy from folks on the island certainly is encouraged and obviously tip well when we do so. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, was there any other email there for public comment? Was there anything about fireworks or anything like that mixed in there that you may have overlooked?
Mayor, just now I noticed that it did not come through the public comment. It came to my regular mailbox.
All right, we'll let it go
with the subject fireworks.
Okay, we'll let it go then. We'll be discussing that later on. Okay, Councilman Veach.
Yeah, I'd like to, I'd like to recognize the volunteers that are looking after the nesting birds down south part of the island and the turtle time volunteers. Because with everything else going on, we're getting turtle nests, and the army of volunteers for turtle time are out at the crack of dawn, walking the beach, looking for nests to mark. And the volunteers are starting down south, marking out the bird nests. So when we're going back to the beach, it's nice to know that there are some things that still continue to tick. And I also concur with Dan and Jim that the beach patrol has been doing a great job, and our local businesses need support. One of my favorite restaurants is opening up today, and that's our dinner tonight. So there you go.
Bon appetit. Vice Mayor Assafras.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to recognize all those folks who are making sure that people who need food are getting food. We have a lot of volunteers who are operating the weekly choice market at Beach Baptist Church. In addition, that is a location for distribution for the Harry Chapin Food Bank. And people from all over the island, not just Beach Baptist, are volunteering to help with these efforts. I really appreciate it. For those who may be running low on funds to purchase groceries, the different locations where you can obtain food are posted on the Chamber of Commerce website, on the Harry Chapin website, on the Community Cooperative website, and I believe Beach Baptist also has it up on theirs as well. So there's lots of places to look for where you can get food. And I just want to recognize those volunteers that are putting themselves out there. It's a lot of work to unload and distribute.
Thank you. I would just like to recognize, last week was a particularly trying week for a lot of local governments, not just ours and the counties, but all up and down the coast around the state of Florida. It was a particularly trying week for those of us in office and for the public as well. It was challenging, but I want to recognize our staff. Starting with town manager Roger Hernstadt and all the way down through the staff for the work that they did to keep everybody on track, keep things going, and just know that I appreciate it very much. On the same token, I'd like to recognize the county folks down in Lee County, the Lee County commissioners, the Lee County manager, and thank them for all the work that they do as well. It may appear at times that we're not all on the same page, and and sometimes we're not. But at the end of the day, we're all trying to do what's right for the town and the county, and we have. Just by chance on Saturday, I was down. Someone wanted to do an interview about the opening of the beach, so I chose Newton Park. And as I was wrapping up the interview, who came walking by in his beach togs with his young son in tow, but Commissioner Brian Hammond himself, whose family enjoys beaching out in front of Newton Beach Park there. So I had the opportunity to go over and talk with his family for a while and meet his wife and talk to the kids and so forth. And he has 2 young children. And we both reflected on the past week, and it was difficult, but everyone got through it. And the relationship between the town and the county is, in my view, is much like a family. We have our disagreements from time to time. We wouldn't be the town of Fort Myers Beach if we didn't have disagreements with the county. So, but at the end of the day, we're both trying to do what's right for the citizens, not only on the beach, but throughout the county. And we're both in there plugging away, trying to do the best we can every day. And for that, I'm thankful for both groups of people for all the hard work that they put in and continue to do on our behalf every day. Okay, that being said, we'll move.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Pardon my interruption. I stand corrected. The email from Jackie regarding fireworks did come through the public comment. However, it came in after the meeting had started, so it wasn't included with the others.
Why don't you just go ahead and read it, and we'll dispense with it right now.
Very good. Thank you. Good morning, Council. I am writing this morning regarding the 4th of July fireworks. I have, along with a large group of residents, business owners, and guests, championed the fireworks for many years. I am asking you today to continue our fireworks tradition, especially in light of what we have all experienced in the past 2 months. Our island and its people need to have something joyful to look forward to as we continue to get back to normal. Fireworks have become a beloved island tradition and a source of community and national pride. It is a tradition that we do not want to see lost. Over the last 2 months, everyone has become well-versed in how to properly practice social distancing and how to protect themselves. We believe that the fireworks can be held with proper precautions in place. Perhaps the town can broadcast the fireworks live on their YouTube channel so that those who do not feel safe attending may get to experience the fireworks from the comfort of their home. Perhaps the town can find ways to limit the number or attendees in Times Square so that the crowd does not gather too closely together. Perhaps the town can encourage watching from the beach and relaxing some rules to accomplish this. Don't forget that our fireworks can be seen for miles along our sandy beach and far out into the Gulf, and at this time, we could use that to our advantage. As always, we stand at the ready to assist however we can. Thank you for your continued support, Jackie Lisek. That concludes.
Thank you for reading that. Okay, the next item is number 7, Advisory Committee items and reports. Now, I know that most of the advisory committees are not meeting these days because of the virus situation. But I do know that the audit committee had a meeting, and I don't know if they have submitted a report today or if we're just going to hear about it in the audit discussion. Has there anything been brought forward by the audit committee or no?
So I haven't seen a document come in terms of an item to be either placed on the agenda or distributed from them,
Okay.
other than their endorsement of the audit during their review of the audit earlier this last week.
Very good. Okay, so there are no other committee reports then as well.
That's correct.
Okay. All right, we'll move on. The next item is 8, is the approval of minutes. The Town Council meeting of April 20th, 2020, and the Town Council's special meeting of April 27th, 2020. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Been moved. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Mr.
Okay.
Mayor,
Been second. Yes. Okay, discussion?
just a couple little things. On page 11 of the packet, and this is for the Monday, April 20th meeting, it mentions motion approved 4-1 with Council Member Adderholt dissenting. I believe that was Council Member Veach who dissented on that particular item. If we just tweak that, that would be great. And then for Monday, April 27th, on page 15 of the packet, near the end of that large paragraph, near the bottom of the page, it's referencing me. They said he commented that it was a thoughtful and pro-public approach. What I actually said, it's not a big deal, but just for the record, he commented that it was a thoughtful and pro-public health approach. I was discussing Vice Mayor Hassenfross's motion. So if we could just tweak those two things, otherwise it looks fine from my perspective.
Thank you. Anyone else have any corrections? Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve both sets of meetings. Discussed. Any objection? The motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. The next item is the consent agenda, and there's only one item on there, and that's the Fifth Amendment of the interlocal agreement between Lee County and Fort Myers Beach for utility relocation. Is there a motion to accept the item?
I will move to approve the consent agenda.
Very good. It's been moved. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Been seconded. Is there any discussion? Is there any objection? That motion carries unanimously. The consent agenda is approved. Okay, we'll move on to the administrative agenda. And the first item is the fiscal year 2019 audit report. And our goal here is to accept the audit report prepared by our auditors, Maldon and Jenkins. I know we have a member of the audit committee also standing by, the chairman himself, former Mayor Dan Hughes. I don't know if we can get the mayor in to comment if he so wishes, if the town wishes to hear from the audit committee before we begin with the auditors.
Yeah, yes, please. That'd be great if we can.
Okay. Can we get Mayor Hughes in?
Got anything? Okay.
Much easier than Mayor Murphy.
They tell me he's connecting. He's coming.
I see.
So mute.
Okay. Dan, you just want to hit your mute button there on your, there you go.
Oh,
Can you hear us, Dan?
I can hear you. Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah, we can't see you either, but as long as we can hear that voice, that's the main thing. So you're on with the council, and we're getting ready to discuss the audit report. And we were just curious as if you had any comments to make as the chairman of the audit committee before we get underway here.
Oh, yes, Mr. Mayor. The audit committee, as you know, had a meeting on April 28th. Unfortunately, I was not present because I didn't receive notice my internet wasn't working. And Mayor Murphy, you were also not aware of that meeting. And the auditor was not available to answer questions. However, the committee reviewed the audit report and accepted it for referral to the town council. There's really nothing particularly earth-shattering in the report, but I would direct your attention to the material weakness set forth on page 13 of the report. For the second year in the row, there's involving the year-end close process, which required this year adjusting $70 million in journal entries. And also the on page 14, the material non-compliance with state and town investment policy dealing with the wire transfer policies. On the positive side, Jim Steele has had some personal meetings with Bob Lang, and after discussions with him, he has concluded that the town is in very good financial position. I do have a couple housekeeping items, which will only take a minute if I may.
Go right ahead.
The audit committee was increased from 5 to 6 last fall. Shortly thereafter, Jim Rodwell resigned, and we now have a vacancy. The committee itself is content with 5 members. We would prefer to just stay at the 5, which was the traditional number of members on that committee, but there is technically a vacancy. It's your call, the town council, as to whether or not you want to fill that vacancy. The other matter involves the finance ordinance 1701. There's provisions in that ordinance for a selection advisory committee, which evaluates bids and go to the town manager, who then reviews them and then goes to town council. This procedure conflicts with the Florida statute, which mandates that the audit committee advise the town council in the selection of an auditor. This caused considerable confusion last year when we were in the process of selecting an auditor, and so I've recommended to staff that we amend the finance ordinance to exempt the audit committee from the selection advisory committee procedures in the finance ordinance. Well, that concludes my comments, Mr. Mayor.
Well, thank you, sir, and thank you for your service, and to your other members. As far as I'm concerned, I don't want to speak for the rest of the council, but if you're content with 5 members on your group, that's good enough with me. 5 is an odd number rather than 6, so I think you're probably better off that way. Okay, thank you, Dan, for your comments, and we'll see you soon.
I'm upset that you didn't get my picture, because I combed my hair and cleaned up and brushed my teeth and put on a nice shirt, and somehow it didn't work.
But did you have your housekeeper come in and take care of the rest of the house? That's the big question.
Okay. All right. Thank you for your good work.
Okay, thank you, Dan.
Keep it up.
Okay, I would be remiss if I didn't say that we have the auditors here with us today. Wade Sansbury from Maudlin and Jenkins, we welcome you. Jennifer Cook, we welcome you. We have also Robert Lang, the town's financial director, is also here, along with, of course, our town manager and, of course, our town attorney, John Herron. So I don't know who wants to begin this discussion. Roger, if you'd like to start it off and speak to the auditors and get us going here, then we'll take it from there.
Okay, well, I want to first say thank you to Bob Lang and his staff, the directors who work closely with him. I want to thank the auditors. We had a very, very difficult situation last year. It came in the last year of our contract with the prior auditors. We had a new auditing team working with the town this year, and they were extremely helpful in terms of working with us to get the audit done and as a timely basis as possible. I do want to take the council back, since we have some new council members who may not be aware of this, that 3 years ago, or now 3.5 years ago, the town's financial system consisted basically of 4 independent software systems that did not talk to each other, one or two of them included using Excel to track the town's finances, which I think many of you know is a great accounting software, but you just overwrite a number and no one can track who changed that number. When Mr. Lang came aboard, he put himself on a very short schedule to do some things that really shored up the town's financial activities. And one was putting in a new software. Another was we went from a multitude of bank accounts to one bank account with one bank, and a variety of other things, such as monitoring and strict enforcement of our procurement rules when items are sent forward by the departments for purchase. I think you're aware of the efforts the prior councils have made to strengthen the town's reserves and support staff recommendations in that regard. Bob Lang did go to the investment policy courses as requested in the prior audit. Unfortunately, the courses are only offered periodically and he couldn't attend till January. But that being said, I think the most interesting thing is we have a investment policy that is never used. And because we have an investment policy that's never used, because we don't invest in that fashion, we have a requirement for Mr. Lang or one of our financial staff to take this course periodically at the cost to the town. And we have gotten notice that when that did not occur. So I guess what we really need to do is recognize that although a tremendous amount of hard work was putting together an investment policy in the past, we don't use it. We don't invest in those type of instruments. So therefore, to my knowledge, it's not really applicable to the town. But we do have the auditors, and I want to mention not only Wade but Jennifer, who did a yeoman's job of working here and with our staff to do the nuts and bolts of the audit. And I want to say I appreciate your efforts, Jennifer. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And with that, I'll let Wade and Jennifer give you their general comments about the audit. I think we've come far, far away from 3.5 years ago. Many of you know my personal motto is good enough never is. So there's opportunities to improve and we'll continue to improve. But with that, I'll turn it over to Wade and Jennifer.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Well, good morning, everyone. Thanks so much for allowing us to be with you all here today, even though it's in a virtual environment with this Zoom. Certainly interesting times that we're all in. But again, appreciate the opportunity to be here with you today and very much appreciate the opportunity to serve the town. I want to echo some of the thoughts that have already been said. And I'm going to do that briefly. I want to just basically just touch on the statements very, very briefly. I'm not going to go over those page by page, but just to let you all know, obviously we were hired as your auditors this year. We came in and did a lot of work, a lot of procedures. Jennifer certainly was the lead in that regard. At the end of the day, we were able to issue you all a unmodified opinion. This is a clean opinion. This is the type of opinion that you all wish to receive each and every year. We did that again in mid-April, which is again a lot better time frame than that of the prior year report. As indicated, there were a lot of issues in the prior year's financial report, and some of those, unfortunately, because of the timing of the issuance of that report, some of those actually fell through into the 2019 report. But I do want to say that the 2019 financial statements, again, in our opinion, are fairly presented in all material respects. The town, I believe, is in good financial position as of 9/30/19. I know that in the current conditions, some of those revenues and whatnot are going to be under a lot of stress. But again, at the end of the year, you had the total assets of the town of a little over 81 million. Very good, strong assets there, and a total net position of just under 52 million. Majority of that is in capital assets, but again, that's a strong financial position. And then additionally, the general fund, which is clearly the largest, most important fund of the town, you all had just a little under 5.6 million in total assets, and just a little over 5 million in total fund balance for the town's general fund. That was an increase over the prior year of about 1.9 million. So again, a very good overall year. I certainly hope that the economy can be reopened, that the reserves that you all were able to establish this past year are not all eaten away. But then, again, there's a lot of good information in the financial statements. I always recommend that if you don't read the entire set of financial statements, that you do read the MD&A. That's the management's discussion analysis. That gives you a lot of comparative information, and gives you kind of the why as to why something went up or went down from that of the prior year. And that was written by management, by Mr. Lang and his staff. As was mentioned earlier, there were a couple of findings this year. Those have really already been discussed, because most of these were continuances from the prior year. But I will say that at the end of the day, you all had, I don't remember the number, but let's just say you had 10 or 12 findings last year. You were able to knock that down to 3 this year. And again, I believe that a lot of these issues were just simply, you just didn't have enough time during the year. When you got your report at the end of June of 19, you only had 3 months to actually make a lot of those corrections. The town, I believe, does have the right personnel in place today, does now have the right systems in place today, the right controls in place today, such that I don't foresee these issues being an issue going forward. So again, I think that's hats off to Mr. Lang and his staff, and all of the hard work that they have accomplished and are still underway and getting taken care of. But I really do believe that as long as all of those things can continue to be worked on, those operations can continue to be tweaked, and that you'll have enough time next year. These findings will not be there going forward. So that was the biggest thing that I wanted to talk to you all about today. I also did want to just mention that, we did try to be a part of the audit committee meeting last week, but there was some information, the actual Zoom login information, that was not provided to us. So we were not able to be a part of that, but there were a lot of good discussion and a lot of good questions that I believe were all answered by either the staff or by us through emails to the audit committee last week. And again, I think the town is in a good place as of 9/30/19. I think you're certainly heading in the right direction as far as getting these issues cleaned up. And I'm looking forward to 9/30/2020 and a good clean report for next year.
Thank you, sir. Does anybody have any questions of Mr. Sansbury? Bill, you're muted.
That item that Dan pointed out on page 9, could you tell us what that's about?
Bill, you're going to have to restate that question again. I don't think he heard that.
Dan Hughes pointed out on page 9 that there was an item. I can bring it back up here and read it, but it's regarding some fees that were not available, that were put down as revenue that was not received.
No.
Do you know what document that was in?
This is Robert Lang. May I answer some of that, or do you want the auditor to answer it?
Whoever can answer it.
Yeah, why don't you take a crack at it, Bob, and then we'll take it from there. Go ahead, Bob.
Yeah, go ahead. Okay. The item Dan was talking about was finding number 1, which was the year-end closing process. And there was a number reflected of about $70 million worth of impacts of the adjustments. And there's an answer. We have answered from the on the management comment. You'll see that on page 53 and 54 of the 3 findings that the auditors presented to you. One was the closing process. The best way I can answer that is that we were just introducing our new fixed asset module and transferring the data from our Excel record keeping process into the new module that we purchased. And we lost a staff member that was doing that. And by the time we were able to get back on it when that person left and turn it around, the auditors were already ready to start their audit process. So we had to make entries, journal entries, in order to record those fixed assets and get them into the system and work up the depreciations, et cetera. So there were a lot of journal entries prepared in order to make those modifications and reclassifications. So they were warranted. They had to be done. We did them thanks to the auditors reviewing them in process, but they were not done prior to the auditors receiving the trial balance. So therefore, it is a comment of multiple journal entries that had to be made, and the value being what was reflected there, and that was reclassifications and recording to a fixed asset module and then getting it posted. And there is a complete answer to that to explain why those entries were, why that comment was presented. And we've jumped on it now, so that comment will not be an issue next year. Staff has already started working on the process to make sure that that's a ongoing resolve. The other 2 items, they're also answered on page 53 and 54. Roger mentioned it. He said that there was a class required for the finance director to go to these to get credit hours. I did attend, but to get clarification of the classes that I took and whether they met the state requirements, I had to go through a lot of red tape to get the support documentation to meet the auditor's answers, or questions rather. And rather than hold up the report, I approved the report to be written with the comment showing that I had not met the credit requirements, and that would be clarified subsequently. And the state FGFOA, which is a Financial Government and Officers Association, stated that my credits were appropriate for meeting the state requirements, but that was after the report was released to the committee and subsequently to the council. I did not want to have that amended. And the last item was the policies, that with all the other items that we were working on for the last 2.5, 3 years, we have not got to the wire transfer policies, although we had good internal controls over them. The controls did not comply exactly to the policy wording that we had in place from 2014, I believe it is. So we're revising that policy so that the actions we're taking and the controls that we have will all be equal to each other. As Roger said on that investment policy, since we do not have an investment program, we utilize our monies on a very timely basis. That it's a mute issue for the town of Fort Myers Beach. And I'm bringing it to the audit committee for review and support to have that policy removed from the town's requirements and set it up as a guideline should we ever get into an investment program. If there's any other questions I can offer you, please ask me.
Okay, thank you. Does that answer your question, Bill?
Yeah. Yes, it sounds like things were pretty messy a few years ago.
Well, can't do anything about that here today. Okay, any other questions for Mr. Stansberry from any council members?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
If I may just briefly, I understand the work of the auditors is primarily retrospective. I was curious, since you have the floor today, do you have any advice based upon what you've seen? And obviously it's a good audit and the town is in great financial condition, which is all good news. But do you have any advice for the town prospectively, given what you've learned and seen from your audit?
Well, sir, I think that's a fair question. Basically, the town has made a lot of headway with its financial controls and its financial procedures. And through the 2019 year end, you also made great strides as far as your overall reserves go. Without the current economic environment, without this current pandemic, I believe you would be off to the races, as they would say. Currently, I believe this council, as well as a lot of other local governments, a lot of other councils such as you all, are going to be really struggling with your budgets upcoming, with the revenue projections and whatnot. And I would just tell you, to do all you can to continue to look for any kind of federal or state assistance as far as grants may go. Be as good a stewards as you possibly can be in your upcoming budget process. This budget is going to be one of the most difficult ones you probably ever had to undertake. And with the opening of the state, that's great, but I still believe that there's still a little bit of a fear and a hesitation by a large amount of the population. And even if everything was open up today, I don't know that everyone would still be flooding out until there's greater immunities and whatnot out there with regards to the virus. But that's really my biggest recommendation to you all, is just to watch every single penny you can from this point forward. If there's anything that you can postpone to a later date to hold on to your cash and reserves, I would recommend that you do that. The revenues that you all are used to, the revenues that you all have that helped create the reserves that you all have here today. Again, this is as of 9/30/19. That's several months ago. There's been a lot of economists that have been talking about, a 10, 12, 13% reduction in overall revenues for state and local governments. And I just want you all to be prepared. Your budget projections for next year will need to be significantly different than they were for 9/30/2020 and certainly 9/30/19.
Thank you very much, Wade. Jennifer Cook, do you have any comments about the audit process itself and how it went so far?
I think we had some adjustments we had to make, a little bit of bumps along the road getting started, but other than that, it went really smooth. I worked really well with Andre and Cheryl and Bob, and we got it done. Everything we asked for, we got. We didn't have to wait. So it was good. It was really good. I don't anticipate making any of the adjustments that we made this year, next year. I think that will be really good going forward, just based on the discussions I've had with the staff and just being in there and seeing how things are going.
Great. And the levels of cooperation were good. You've said that already, and everything went
absolutely. Yes.
Okay,
yes.
Great. I'm glad to hear all that. Any other questions from the members to the auditors?
I don't have a question, Mr. Chair, for the auditors. I have a question for Roger, if I may.
I've got one final question for the auditors, if I can ask. Wade, I got to ask you about that fish on the wall behind you there. Is that a largemouth bass, or what is that?
It is. That's a bass that I caught when I was 11 years old on my aunt's pond and farm back in Georgia.
Wow. Good for you. All right.
And it's funny, my kids, I've got a 16 and a 14-year-old, they go around the neighborhood and fish all the time. And they've already caught ones larger than that, and they're asking when they can put theirs on the wall.
Good for you. Good for you. All right. Good luck with that then. Dan, go ahead. I'm sorry. Ask your question, please.
No, it's based on Wade's recommendation there with the grants and the programs. Roger, have we looked into that, maybe adjusting how we go about it? Or are we, what is the plan going forward to become more aggressive or to change it up a little bit to maybe get some more of those grants?
Every grant opportunity that we become aware of, we circulate among our directors to see if it poses an opportunity for us. And they're evaluated at the director level, and recommendations from directors come forward. with regard to the feasibility of that grant for the town. We, as you know, we try to not only tell the town council that when we receive a grant, but also when we're applying for a grant, because in many cases, they either require a match and or require resources of the town for us to get them. So we like to keep the council in the loop with regard to those activities. But I will tell you that while Wade's comment is very true of many municipalities, the town of Fort Myers Beach is doing extremely well in weathering the storm of the coronavirus. While we've had losses of revenues in certain areas, we've had a good year in others. And as it stands right now, while we are down some revenues, we have others that are making that up, and we feel like we're in a pretty good position compared to our peers. I'm glad to be able to report to you. And as we go forward and we'll be starting our budget discussions as soon as Thursday, I think Council Adhoc asked for a preview of where we are with our capital program. Bring that for Thursday. I think you'll be very pleased and happy to see where we are relative to other communities. One of the things we're very careful about here is we don't necessarily, like some municipalities do, assume that they will receive certain monies from the state and federal government. And as a result of not doing that or doing that extremely conservatively, we don't put ourselves in a position where our budget is out of balance. Or potentially we have to significantly dip into our reserves. So I know Wade would be happy to see those numbers in 6 months or so.
Absolutely, that's good. That's good to hear.
But I do want to just say one last thing, and that is that you know, the auditors not only watch what we're doing as a town, but they're also among themselves communicating about weaknesses and issues that happen in other governments. And then that immediately translates into, okay, we heard about a problem in Pahokee. You know, what is the town of Fort Myers Beach doing about that potential problem? And through the associations that Bob mentioned and the associations that I belong to, we try to keep our eye out for those types of things and try to address them. So one example, a recent example that you all may have seen is where certain governments computer systems were hacked and actually even held hostage for monetary payments to be released. As soon as we got word of that, we immediately reviewed our IT structure. We did penetration testing and other things to make sure that our systems could be as secure as possible. So in some cases, that meant that we had to limit some access to some files by the public, but we had to do that to ensure that our systems could not be hacked, because each of our systems, while they're independent, do talk to one another. So there could be something could happen in some government tomorrow, I guess is my point. And we'll be trying to deal with it. And I'm sure Wade and Jennifer will be looking at how we dealt with it from September. But it's a dynamic thing, and we all have to continue to stay on our toes and continue to evaluate our systems and methodologies, procedures, and constantly update them with the changing times.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate all the comments and the reports. Now, is there a motion to accept the fiscal year 2019 audit report
If I might, you kept asking if people had a question of the auditors, which I did not, but I do have a question for the council and for Roger, if I might.
Go right ahead.
I have to say I'm a bit surprised by all the happy sounding words that I'm hearing. There was a great deal of criticism of our staff approximately 3 years ago. This report has more negative things in it than I've ever seen in any of our audits in my memory. I am not a financial person, but I have trained myself, and I went to the audit committee meetings for a period of 3 years, and I learned that there's certain words you look for, like material weakness. I'm not pleased to see that that's mentioned in this report. And despite the fact that we have reassurances that it's not reoccurring, 2 of the things that are mentioned in this report are reoccurring from the previous year. So
what are those?
One of the things that seems to be mentioned is that we got behind the 8 ball because of lack of personnel, yet I really haven't heard an explanation. Did the entire staff quit all at once? Why did we have such a lack of personnel to get the work done?
Would you like me to answer that question?
Well, I don't know if it's you or Roger who can answer it best.
Well, I can give you a little history if Roger doesn't mind. I came aboard in June of 2017, and my predecessor left about a month and a half, 2 months later. And the accounting staff that we had also left in late October. That as the budget was adopted, that staff member left. So I had to go and pull in.
Everybody left voluntarily. Are you telling me everybody left voluntarily, sort of in a group?
They resigned and left. There were several people that left the town after new management came in, and there were several people that followed them. So in our case, we had put a lot of eggs. We had put a lot of eggs in one basket by having one staff member that knew the accounting system, and she was maintaining an old system that had not been updated since 2004. And she packed up and left. Fortunately, she helped us try to get through that year's audit. But I brought in 2 new people to try to replace some of the staff members. And then I had a third one leave under retirement because she couldn't handle the processes that were taking place. I found many items that were not being processed on a timely basis. Accounts payables were backed up. We were not recording accruals on a monthly basis. We were not doing bank recs on a monthly basis. All of these things were waiting to the end of the year. And here I lost my staff. I'm new in the town, and I brought in new people to try to train into governmental side. And at the same time, we took on a new financial system, and our network had collapsed on us, our infrastructure, because the town had not submitted requests to rebuild the infrastructure. So with the support of the audit committee, with the support of the town manager, and the support of the council, we took about $65,000, $70,000 and replaced our whole information technology structure, the network, put in firewalls, put in safeguards, changed the hardware, etc. And we also went out for a new software system because, as I said, the old software system had not been updated since 2004. That was just neglected by prior management.
I'm going to jump in there, Bob, because I remember that the finance department came and asked for new programming, and the town council at that time refused to pay for it. It was asked for in the budget years ago. So
okay,
yeah, that may have been true. I mean, it doesn't. The fact of the matter is, it didn't get updated. But
and I just, if we were going through all this crisis, Roger, I know I've said this to you in the past. Why then do we have a part-time finance director? It seems like if our entire staff was gone and we were struggling to get things done, why would we have a part-time finance director?
Well, the answer to that is very, very simple. That when Mr. Lang started with us, he we had existing staff, and frankly, once we get these systems running, I don't know that we do need to have someone here full time, but we could look at the staffing with respect to that. We'll be starting the budget process very soon. But I think I'm very careful to be with the words I choose about our prior staff, because I think they all try to do the best job as possible. And I'm not going to tear open into them, but the reason that I'm here is because there was $3 million of expenses sitting around here that were unpaid. And, how the auditor at that time dealt with that's their job to deal with that the way they deem appropriately. But I can tell you that we don't have that situation going on now. And we have a lot of other situations that, in my opinion, should have and could have been reported that weren't for whatever reason. That's the individual decision of the auditor who's serving the town at that particular point in time. But I will tell you that we take the process very seriously. We go through the comments very carefully, Bob and myself and his staff, and we develop a work plan to try to address them so that they don't reoccur. Now, what Wade said is very true. When you get the comments in June and fiscal year ends in September, you have a very limited window to try to address those comments, and that's what the situation we were in last year. This year, we had our comments in a reasonable time frame. I think Wayne would be surprised to hear me say I would have loved to have them earlier. But we have those comments, and we have 4 months to work on them, and we will. But I hear what you're saying, Madam Vice Mayor, that the comments that you may have seen in the past relative to the comments now. I will tell you that while they may sound better or sound worse now to you, I will tell you that materially, in my opinion, they were a lot worse then. And the town is in a much better financial position. We didn't have a CPA on staff. We have a CPA on staff. We have someone who has many years experience. In the past, we had someone who was the permit clerk and did a good job and was promoted to the finance department. So we have people who have financial backgrounds who are working for us now. And yes, we have work to do. But don't confuse the comments with the money.
I'm not.
Yeah, I think the comments are things that are important and appropriate and evolving. And let me tell you, if we solve these 3 comments, I'll tell you that there'll be other comments, because they're always going to look for opportunities for us to be improved, because it's an evolving situation. What happened, and you may or may not be aware of this, is that there was a paradigm change in government accounting where, unfortunately, some firms were giving towns and cities good reports when the situation was not good. And that hit the government accounting industry very hard, and they are extremely serious, and they leave no stone unturned now. And I don't know that I would say the same thing was the case when this incident of several governments overstating, several accounting firms were overstating a government's financial position. But we welcome them as part of our team. We work forward with them. Every time you get a new accounting team in, they're going to focus on perhaps different issues and identify different things. But again, I hear your comments. I take them very seriously. I will tell you that you asked specifically about staffing. We have we have sought to increase the experience professionalism of our staff, not just replace staff. And in some cases, that has taken some time. But I'm very comfortable with the staff that we have. I believe that they're working extremely hard to not only manage the day-to-day expenses of this town. Don't forget, we also have a $60 million infrastructure program going on at the same time. And they admitted when they couldn't handle it and they needed the help. You have 2 items on today's agenda to consider today to approve, because they recognize that they can't do the things here and also see our payments through the process in Tallahassee. We need people in Tallahassee to do the Tallahassee work. So be assured that things are in good shape and will continue to get better.
Thank you. Any other questions, Madam Vice Mayor?
I guess I'm wondering whether, without having the auditors present, whether we need to have a joint meeting at some point with the audit committee just to really fill ourselves in. Obviously, Roger was telling me a lot of things today that I was unaware of, that, so many people quit all at the same time, for example. So I don't know whether the rest of the council is interested in asking for a joint meeting with the audit committee in the near future.
You know, that's something I'm sure that we can address, but that's not really what we're here to address today. We're here to address this audit report and to approve it. I'm sure.
May I just add one thing? One of the members of the audit committee was also the interim town manager.
All right.
So if there is someone who, beyond being someone who knows about finance and perhaps IT, here's someone who worked with the stuff intimately for a period of time. And I would tell you that that person's sort of approval and support of the audit and the way the town is moving forward carries tremendous weight with me. And my understanding of their analysis of this is that they're fully supportive of the audit results and the direction that the town is moving forward.
Okay, very good. As far as your question, Vice Mayor, I'm sure that we can set up a meeting in the future with the audit committee. I'm sure everybody else on the council would favor that. I'm just assuming that. I'm sure that they do, and I'm sure everybody has other questions that we'd like to ask, and that would be a great forum to do that. And once we get a little more normalized here, I think we should probably do that. So, with that being said, I will ask now for a motion to accept the 2019 audit report as prepared here by our CPAs.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion. I'll make a motion to accept the fiscal year 2019 audit as presented.
Thank you. Is there a second? I'll second that. Any more discussion? Any objection? The motion carries unanimously. Thank you all very much for that. Thank you for your help. Okay. Let's take a 5 or 10 minute break here and come back if that's okay with everybody. All right?
All right.
Thank you.
got a message that the host was asking me to start my video.
Yeah, I had the same thing pop up. I just clicked on it and here I am.
Ray's not back yet.
Is everyone back?
I'm back.
I'm back.
Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think you're.
Your council members and your manager are here. Your attorney is still not back.
There he is.
Okay, we'll resume the meeting. The next item on the agenda is letter B, which is the SRF technical services for the water. And this is to authorize the town manager to execute a contract not to exceed $21,331.50 with Angie Brewer and Associates to perform compliance activities, loan application agreement, and loan administration required by the state revolving fund criteria for the water application and agreement. Is there a motion to approve that? Authorize the town manager.
I'll move to approve.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Been moved and second. Any discussion?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
if I might ask Roger just a couple questions and maybe give some context behind the answers to those questions. How many previous SRF loans have been approved for water?
When we apply to the state, they have made a decision whether or not to increase our original loan. And in some cases, they have told us to go out for a new loan. My recollection, Councilman, is that for water right now, we have 2.
What's the amount of new loans for both water and storm?
I don't have that information in front of me, but I'll get it for you in a couple of minutes if you want it.
Or just ballpark?
Give me a second. I could probably look it up.
I'm sorry, I'm here. I was having technical difficulties.
Hi.
Hi. Okay, so currently, I'm sorry, the question was the current loans we have?
Yeah, well, the first question was how many previous SRF loans have been approved for water, and then just an estimated amount of the new loans for both water and sewer.
Okay, so currently we have 2 drinking water loans. The initial one was for 17 million, a little over 17 million. We have dispersed to date 14 million. The second drinking water loan that is going through currently is we've been approved for 6 million with an additional 5 million. We have 1 stormwater loan, and that's 13 million. We have dispersed to date 5.9 million. And then the second stormwater loan, which is part of the second item here for Angie Brewer, we're not quite sure of yet until we get that through to the state.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Just to put a context around that, the original program for water was approximately 40 million, and the original program estimate for stormwater was roughly 24.5 million.
Okay, very good.
Any further discussion? Any objection to the motion? Motion carries unanimously. The next item is letter C, which is very similar. It's the SRF Technical Services for Stormwater. This is to authorize the town manager to execute a contract not to exceed $21,331.50 with Angie Brewer and Associates to perform compliance activities, loan application agreement, and loan administration required by the state revolving fund criteria for the stormwater application and agreement. Is there a motion to approve the authorization for the town manager?
I would move to approve.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Any objection? The motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The next item, thank you, Christy, for your help. The next item is letter D, which is the 4th of July fireworks. This is to authorize either the Aero Shell team for a flyby on July 4th at a cost not to exceed $22,000, or approve the contract with Garden State Fireworks in the amount of $27,000 for a fireworks show on July 4th. Allocate funding already budgeted for this fiscal year and authorize the town manager to execute the associated documents. So I guess now we're going to have the discussion. Everybody can get out their crystal ball and we'll talk about the 4th of July. Whoever wants to start, feel free.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
The reason this item is on the agenda today is we're at the deadline for engaging the fireworks company.
Yeah, I get that.
So if the council were inclined to continue the past practice of the fireworks show, if for some reason down the road, call it off, the money that's allocated to pay the fireworks company would be lost. They have not indicated to us, and Allison is standing by, but as far as I know, they've not indicated to us any credit or reimbursement of those funds should the council have to cancel the fireworks show at a later date.
Well, we would lose half, right? Because they want half up and then half the day of. Is that right? Did I read that?
I believe that's correct, Allison. He's there.
Is Allison there?
Yes, I am here.
Oh, hi,
thank you. In their contract that is in the packet, if you read number 3, part A, in the event of rain or severe weather, the show may be rescheduled to the agreed postponement date for an additional fee. And that is the only time it says it must be rescheduled within the period terminating 90 days after the original date. So you are correct, unless there is severe rain or weather, we are unable to do that other than that postponement. It does say number B, if the contract is postponed as a result of governmental order or restriction on gatherings related to COVID-19, there will be no postponement fee provided the display is postponed to a date not later than January 1st, 2020. So the notification of said postponement must not occur later than 30 days prior to the display. So there's a few things to work with, but they do need adequate time. We have to decide if we want it July 4th for that lead time for the contractor to be able to provide it for July 4th.
We're talking about the Garden State contract, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, any other comments from the members here?
I'd like to comment on this, Mr. Mayor. It seems to be that there's people who are under the impression that the COVID-19 is over, that we're opening things up and things are getting back to normal. I think that having a big celebration like this, whether it's a parade or fireworks, getting a lot of people in close proximity, social distancing would be practically impossible. I think there would be a lot of risk of contagion without a lot of benefit. And I just think that it's really premature to talk about getting the island packed full of people like we were on spring break. Much as I would like it to be the case, I just think that this is it's kind of reminiscent of what happened in Philadelphia during the Spanish flu in 100 years ago. Is that the mayor wanted to have a parade. He wanted to celebrate the war effort, World War I, and because of that parade, the hospitals and things were swamped with new infections. So I really think that the idea of having the fireworks, I don't think there's enough benefit to the businesses of the town for the risk of infection that we can have with having the island crowded full of people in a small area.
Well, I certainly agree that it's a very risky proposition, and the picture that I get in my mind is Times Square packed with people, pretty much chest to chest is the way it gets down there, right? So I tend to agree with you, Bill. I mean, I don't want to be the spoiler here, but I don't see how it can happen myself in those sort of. Now, if there are alternatives, and this flyby apparently is an alternative where everybody looks up to the sky and watches this flyby go by the various towns and communities and so forth. But I'm with you. I don't see how we could possibly put all those people together. And I mean, we've already postponed all of our biggies for the year already. The Shrimp Festival, St. Patrick's Day, and so forth and so on. I mean, I agree. I mean, we're taking baby steps right now to see what's going to happen. But I know for a fact. I mean, after all the discussion about social distancing and open up the beaches and so forth, that very day, although they were social distance out on the beach, which was fantastic, there were stores, there were restaurants on the inside where they were packed out front, packed in together, and ignoring all social. So I can just imagine what would happen on the 4th of July. So anyhow, I'm open to the discussion, but I am in your camp at the moment, Councilman, and I'll wait to hear what the other members have to say.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
And this is an important discussion, and I respect your perspective and Councilor Veach's perspective. I also think, again, the first couple days when the beach opens, you're going to see, and we saw a surge because people have had some pent-up demand, and then things settle down and we spread out. And again, with each week that passes, folks are becoming much more educated, much more responsive to the social distancing and hygiene recommendations that have occurred. And I've been extremely impressed with how the island has responded to these things as you go up and down the beach, as I did all weekend. People are very respectful of the social distancing dynamic. We had the head of the Chamber of Commerce come out and say this morning that she thinks she can manage this, and it'd be different if she didn't have a track record. She's got a tremendous track record of the sand sculpting competition and a litany of other events that they manage very responsibly. Again, I think too, the way people watch fireworks along the beach, it's not just all clustered in Times Square, although there's a great deal of activity, but I think we can trust our people to understand that these are different times and that they're going to need to spread out more along the beach. And I just think, again, this is quite a ways away, so we have even more time to educate, inform, prepare, put scenarios together. We've got folks at the Chamber who know how to put on big events, and I think we could probably do this in a way that would be responsible and respectful of the CDC guidelines. And so I'm a little more optimistic, I guess I would say, as we have this conversation, but I respect your concerns.
I have every, go ahead, Dan.
Oh, thanks, Mr. Chair. I mimic a lot of what Jim has just said. Because we are at a deadline for the fireworks to have it or not have it. As Jim said, 2 months away, it's a long ways. And if we've learned anything in the last 45 days of how fast things can go up and come back down. An alternative that I don't think we've discussed that we could think about is if we agree to go forward with the fireworks contract, we could still have the fireworks without having people in Times Square. We could still have the fireworks with having people just on the beach. So that the chance of losing that money then would be much smaller. So I agree with Jim. I think that I'd be in favor of moving forward, understanding your concerns and Bill's concerns. And if things happen over the next 2 months, we have time to correct anything that we take today.
You know, that very thought occurred to me some time ago, Dan, that we could close Times Square. But that's just Times Square. I mean, then you have Lynn Hall Park, and you have the pier, and you have et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You know, it's I just don't know. I don't know how you do it in lieu of maybe floating a barge offshore and closing off the whole area and spreading people out. You know, I don't know. Further comments, Vice Mayor?
My comment would be that I tried to look at this and to see what category that it fell into. And I look at the fireworks as being in the nature of a public event like a concert or a football game. We aren't having those, and I don't anticipate that we're going to be having them in the near future. I just don't feel that it would be good for us to allocate resources to something that has a very good chance of not being an appropriate time to have it. So I would be, and you know, when it got closer to the date, it might be that we could want to do it, but that's not possible because the company insists that we have this deadline this far out. So I would be just not inclined to go with fireworks at this point. I'm open to discussion about the flyover, but I would not vote for fireworks.
Okay. Well, I think we have direction there thus far about the Garden State contract. You have 3 people that are not unwilling to commit to that at this time. So let's talk about the flyover. Let's talk about that. It's an interesting concept. The cost is minimal when it's spread out over the other communities, but does that in fact prevent the very gatherings that we're trying to prevent? I'm not sure, but I'm open to discussion from the council. Members?
Mr. Chair,
yes.
I have a question for maybe Roger and Allison. Have we reached out to any other fireworks companies to see if they would be willing to do the same thing that Garden State has done, but give us a further out date to continue to monitor what's been going on?
Mr. Councilman, I'm going to answer your question indirectly, but it's not trying to avoid your question. This was a deadline set by Garden State. If July 1st, the council said, gee, everything's going great, I'd love to have fireworks, they may or may not agree at that date and time to do the fireworks show. I don't know. I don't know what their real lead time is. They're telling us they need to know today. So we're reacting to that in good faith, but I don't know that, you know, they may change depending on what the council's actions are. With respect to other companies, my recollection, and Allison may know this or not, I don't know, but last time we went out to see if someone else could provide fireworks, we didn't have any other responders. But Allison may have more information about that.
I have a feeling fireworks are going to go the route of stone crabs down in the Florida Keys right now. You can buy stone crabs down in the Keys right now for about $7 or $8 a pound. Why? Because they can't sell their crabs to the restaurants up in Miami-Dade because they're all closed. And I have a feeling that's going to be the same thing with these fireworks vendors, that there's going to be communities all across the United States of America that are going to be foregoing the 4th of July fireworks this year, regrettably, mind you, but I'm sure that's going to be happening all over the country. But anyhow, do we want to discuss this flyover business? Is anybody interested in that?
I have a couple of comments on just looking at it. One thing is it says a cost not to exceed $22,000, but then further down, that is the cost split between 4 municipalities.
Yes.
So the actual cost, I mean, it seems to imply that we think that we're going to be the only municipality that signs up.
No, yeah. I should probably have said that. That was my understanding when we read through it too. It would be a minimal outlay by the town, and it would be something, and it's my understanding it would be held during the daytime. So I'm, it's not going to be the same, but what is this year? Really, I mean, what's going to be the same?
And I tell you, I have, I don't have the kind of safety reservations with the flyover because, thinking about fireworks, as everybody knows, the closer you are to where the fireworks are going off, the more exciting it is. And there are people, certainly my friends and neighbors around here, they'll walk downtown for fireworks just to be as close as possible. With the flyover during the day, the beach is going to be busy anyway. I really don't have any objections to it. I think it's a good way to show respect to our nation in a way that doesn't damage anybody's health.
I agree. Yes.
And just a thought, again, I still feel pretty strongly about the fireworks because not only is it a tradition, but it's any opportunity we can to spur economic development in our community, particularly during the off season, is certainly real important. But having said that, I did look at the video for this entity that's flying over, and Roger, correct me if I'm wrong, or Allison, but it sounds as if because of the research they've done on this project, I think the company, the FAA, has prohibited any acrobatics and prohibited any colors of smoke coming from the plane. So is it, and help me if I just understand, would it then just be 4 prop planes flying over? I mean, or would there be any kind of a show? Would there be any kind of a dynamic to it? I mean, I'm for anything that's going to draw people out and for economic development, particularly in these difficult times. But I'm not sure, is the show somewhat neutered to the point where, help me understand how restrained the show is based upon FAA guidelines and other concerns.
Allison has more information on the details of the show. Allison?
Yes, so that is correct. The acrobatics would not be able to be approved. It would be about 30 minutes. They do have some smoke that they are allowed to use to create so you can see where they're flying, but you're right, all of those things that you said, it is restricted. So it would just be flyover, no acrobatics would be allowed. Just something to be able to see the World War II planes. And then the duration, they said, could be about 30 minutes. If we are able to get other municipalities on board, the cost, of course, would be lessened than the $22,000. That is the max in case no municipalities are wanting to participate. So that I just wanted to clarify that as well.
And just further question, Allison, hasn't this been spurred by another municipality? So aren't we at least guaranteed one other partner already, or is that not the case?
Well, Lisa Spatoni, who is the president and CEO of the River District Alliance, and she does all the downtown Fort Myers. She is actually meeting with her board this week. So nobody has actually decided on this. So there is some opportunity, but nothing to clarify to say for sure a yes or no. So they also need to decide that.
Interest, but no commitment.
Correct.
We could lend our support to it and find out later on that it's not going to happen at all. That's conceivable. But
Mr. Chair, can I ask Allison a question regarding the flyover?
You got it. Go right ahead.
Allison, have they given us any deadline like Garden State did as far as when we would have to commit to this one way or another?
No, I talked to one of the Aeroshell, Mark Henley, one of the flight team members, and I did ask that question. He did say that as we approach the date closer, there will be more demand. Right now, we are, because we were working with Lisa Spatoni several weeks ago just for the idea, we do have a hold date, but it would be a $3,000 deposit required to actually hold the date. So he said that as the longer we wait, the more higher demand. But as of now, there was not a high demand other than us for our interest.
Then, Mr. Chair, based on that, I would recommend that we table this to maybe our M&P meeting to keep our options open. Maybe we can direct Roger and his staff to reach out to Garden State or maybe some other companies to see if they would forego their requirement of making us do this sooner than later. as you mentioned earlier, there's going to be probably a plethora of companies out there looking for business. So we may be in a spot where we can have some negotiating power.
Well,
What's that?
Was that a motion?
Yes, I will make that a motion.
I'll second.
And moved in second. Any further discussion? I'd just like to say that that doesn't really, I mean, the fact of the matter is that this pandemic that we're going through right now isn't going anywhere for a while. And that's not whether we hold off on negotiating with Garden State or anything is not going to change the conditions that are out there right now. And I'm only making that statement based on what I'm hearing from the health professionals, which I'm certainly not. So that's how I'm basing my opinion on that. But I will support your motion here at the moment, and we can address it later on. So all in favor? If there's no objection, the motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. So just a footnote to that, I'm sure the headlines are Fort Myers Beach cancels 4th of July. That's not the case at all. We're considering options, and even if these don't pan out, the good people of the beach and Lee County will all find ways to celebrate the 4th of July and pay tribute to the United States of America. So thank you very much for that. The next item is item E, which is RFP-20-11-CD. This is the Planning Consulting Services for Comprehensive Plan and Land Development Code updates. This is a review of the Selection Advisory Committee's recommendations regarding requests for proposals number 20-11-CD, Planning Consulting Services for Comprehensive Plan and Land Development Code updates, and authorize the town manager to enter into negotiations with the recommended firm and bring a contract back to town council for consideration. Is there a motion to allow the town manager to enter into these negotiations to bring back a contract?
If I might, Mayor,
Yes.
as I read it, the committee recommended that we interview the Corradino group prior to moving forward. Did I read this incorrectly?
That we interview, or the
yes, the council interview the Corradino group was what I thought they were asking, which is that what's said further down on the blue sheet differs a little bit from what's on top of the blue sheet. But I thought, as I read further, that the committee recommended that the council interview the Corradino group.
Madam Vice Chair, they actually recommended that we interview all three.
All three.
Is the way that I read it.
That's my understanding as well.
So rather than going forward with a motion for the town manager to go forward, I would prefer to have a motion that the council interview possibly all three. I don't know if all three want to show up, considering how they've been rated, I don't know, but we could invite all three, and who shows up then could be interviewed. So I'll make that a motion that the council interview the.
Very good. Is there a second to that?
I will second that.
Been moved and seconded. Discussion? Any objection? The motion carries unanimously. We'll have some interviews. Thank you. The next item is the letter F, request for appointment to the Marine Resources Task Force. There's an opening on on MRF. Madam Clerk, am I correct that there were a couple of other applicants that came in subsequent to the deadline, or they're near?
One came in this morning.
One came in this morning.
That's correct, Mayor. Last week, I believe it was Thursday or Friday of last week, I received one from
Joel Perry.
yes, thank you. I could see his face. I couldn't bring his name. And then this morning we received the other from, I read it in public comment this morning. So we have a total of 4 that are interested in being appointed to the one vacancy.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I would move that we disqualify Mr. Heim He answered the question, yes, that he was a registered voter in the town of Fort Myers Beach. But when you look up his address that he lists as his home residence, he does not live in the town of Fort Myers Beach.
Questioned that myself. It was siesta something.
Yes.
Yeah, that question. I was wondering about that myself. Okay, that seems to be well. Is the okay? The question was that he gave untruthful answers on the application. So that's unless there's any objection, that seems like grounds for refusal, I suppose. Now, I'm just wondering. I'm not sure about this lady that submitted today, but I do know that Mr. Perry was one of the original members of the Marine Resources Task Force appointed by Mayor John Mulholland himself, and I'm just wondering if we could postpone this vote to. Even though he was a day or so late getting his app in, I don't know what the circumstances were, but I'd like for you all to consider him, and if you'd indulge me on that. But if that's not your will, then so be it.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir.
I also got a text message saying that Wendy Giatano,
yes.
that she has actually had an application in from a previous opening. And I think she was under the impression they would stay there until considered.
Okay. All right.
I have no problem with postponing this until a future meeting.
Okay. Is everybody else all right with that?
Mayor, I'm fine with that too, but just for clarification purposes, the person who applied today, could we just list the names of those, aside from the person that we just set aside, can we list the names of the applicants at this point, just so I can make sure I have it correct in my notes?
The ones that have already submitted?
Yes, please.
I believe it was the aforementioned Mr. Heim. There was a Sarah Torgerson. And was there a third?
Well, Bill Perry.
Well, that's, yeah, Bill.
Then you have two add-ons, Bill Perry and Wendy.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, then that's what we'll do. We'll reschedule, and they're not meeting now anyhow, so there's really no great urgency here, although we'd like to fill it. So thank you for that. The next item is speaking of the mayor himself, it's the Mayor John Mulholland Stewardship Award. And this is select recipient of the 2020 Mayor John Mulholland Stewardship Award. And I'm curious as to how we're going to do this today. This is usually these sort of things are usually voted by ballot. Am I wrong in that? That we give to the town clerk.
Yeah, typically paper ballots.
Paper ballots. Yeah, I don't know how we would do that today over the Zoom.
Well, maybe with some discussion we could reach a consensus.
Well, I don't know. Is everybody comfortable with that? Is everybody comfortable just?
Well, this is usually vetted by Murph, and then Murph makes recommendations. But since Murph isn't meeting, it looks like town just wanted to put it directly on the council's agenda, and that's the way we do it. So I would think just talk about the 3 nominations, and then we can make a decision.
I was going to mention, if I might, as much as I admire Mayor Saracita, the items that are mentioned about her really aren't relevant to the Mulholland Award. My understanding is it's environmental stewardship, and all of the things that are listed in her nomination really don't have to do with the environment. So if the others feel the same way, that narrows us down somewhat.
Well, this is why it makes it uncomfortable, but I'll lead the conversation. I feel the same way. Mayor Saracita, God bless her, she's been with us since the beginning, and her name, along with mine and several of yours, is on just about every piece of environmental legislation that this town has passed in its 25-year history. So there's no denying that. Now, as you say, though, Vice Mayor, in that application, most of those credits that she was given really had nothing or not much to do with the environment, although there was a passing comment as to her being environmental or something along those lines. So if that's the decision for exclusion today, then so be it. The other nominees are Shannon and who was the third again?
The Fairview Isles HOA, Don and Joe Fleming.
Yes, yes.
I'm willing to put it out there that I admire Shannon a great deal. She's already been recognized in various ways for her work with Murph. I think it's nice to recognize some people that we haven't heard about before, and I would recognize the Flemings and the Fairview Isles HOA for their work.
Okay, that's one group. Bill, it looks like you want to say something.
Yeah, I just for clarity, I was the one who submitted Shannon Mapes in, and there are, she was given the Murphy Award, which is a casual once a month award, but the Mulholland is really more of a long-term commitment. It's people that have demonstrated environmental stewardship over the long term. I don't want to call it like a lifetime achievement award, because that's usually what you give people when they're, at the end of their career. Shannon, since she's lived here, has been very, very effective and very much a driver for a lot of the legislation that came through. This is everything from the fertilizers, straw bans. She has been invaluable and tireless in her efforts. And I do appreciate that that Don and Joe, from my understanding, have taken some measures. And I read through what they talked about, although it's a little hard on the computer because everything's over, but they do work as good community organizers and doing things in their community. I think they're both good candidates, but I think that Shannon was very effective and very passionate about the efforts that she was making.
Okay. Dan Allers, you want to weigh in on this?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I mean, I can see both of those being awarded this award. I agree with Bill. She's done a fabulous job of getting things like fertilizer and stuff like that through. And I agree with Roxanne with Fairview Isles. But I tend to lean more with the vice chair about the community. The fact that a community did a lot of things, and the fact that she has received an award, I would be on the side of Dawn and Joe.
The homeowners group.
Well, just for clarity, the Mulholland Award can go to individuals and organizations and businesses. We have given more than one Mulholland Award in a calendar year. If we're talking about the HOA that Don and Joe are running, that's a separate category than it is from Don and Joe.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
In light of the fact that this is a virtual meeting and we have paper ballots, it is possible that the town council could email me their votes and we can visit it after a few minutes.
Well, I'll tell you what, we've started down this path, and we're getting darn near close to finishing. So we'll keep going with this. I think everybody would agree to that. Jim Adderholt.
I just had a question for Bill. Bill raised an interesting point. I just wanted to get some clarification. Bill, are you suggesting that we have two separate categories and we could give two awards? I thought that was interesting, but I didn't fully understand what you were saying.
The Mulholland Awards, and Michelle can make sure I'm correct on this, they can go to organizations, businesses, and individuals. And in the past, we have done different categories over the course of a year. And even in exceptional years, like last year, I think it was, we actually gave 2 awards to 2 individuals.
That's correct.
And who's to say we couldn't give 3? So
I like the mayor's perspective on that.
let's see. We've heard from everybody. Well, I'll tell you how I feel about this. I really, really was thankful for all the work that Shannon did. I mean, it was very obvious to me how much time and effort she put into to that business with the you know, how can I forget now what the poison, you know, but anyhow, it was very obvious to me how much time she put in, and obvious to everybody, and we're indebted to her for that forever. I also see the contributions that the others have made. I mean, there's no getting around it. There's no getting around it whatsoever. Now, if this means putting these people up on that tree, that Mulholland tree, that mangrove tree that's in Town Hall, I don't know how many leaves are left on that. Do you, Madam?
A lot. There's a lot.
There's a lot of leaves on that, and there'll be councils long after us filling up the rest of that mangrove, and so it wouldn't bother me one bit whatsoever to award that Mulholland Award to all three of the applicants, and that's not to diminish the award itself or take away from either one of the other applicants whatsoever, but that would be my recommendation. Now, if you want to single out one, that's fine with me too. But I'll hear what the others have to say.
I'm just confused by when you say all three. Were we segregating Don and Joe Fleming out from Fairview Isles as the third, or are you saying Anita Saracita is the third?
I was including Mayor Saracita as the third, but I was lumping the folks down there at Fairview Isles together.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, as one group.
I'm always trying to follow your direction here. Is that, when you offered that suggestion, did you offer that in the form of a motion?
Well, I could make that a motion.
Because I will second that motion for discussion purposes.
Moved and seconded. Thank you. Now we can discuss.
I have to tell you, I think that the idea of Anita, it's in some ways, it's a technicality because we know it's not a matter of if, but when.
Right.
She's not going anywhere. She's not going to become any less active. And I honestly have no problem now versus later. So.
Very good. Vice Mayor, did you have anything else to add?
Nope.
No, good. Okay, I'll call the question. Is there any objection to the motion? The motion carries unanimously, 5-0. Congratulations to the recipients. We look forward to.
And thank you all for your work.
Yes, thank you very much. Okay, the next item is final public comment. Madam Clerk, is there any more public comment?
I have not received any. No.
Okay, good.
I'm in the waiting room, I'm being told. So we'll let that.
There is someone in the waiting room?
Yes, Mayor.
Okay, well, that's public comment. Well, we don't know that. We don't know, huh?
In the waiting room, I'm being told. So we'll let that.
There is someone in the waiting room?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, well, that's public comment. Well, we don't know that. We don't know, huh?
Yes, I have a comment. In the waiting room, I'm being told. So we'll let that. Hello?
There is someone in the waiting room? 1 minute.
Yes.
1 minute, ma'am. 1 minute. Okay, that's public comment.
I think she's got her television on.
Yes, I have a comment.
Can you turn your television down, ma'am?
Yes, sir.
Okay, go ahead. Make your comment. Thank you.
Thank you for taking my call. I am a timeshare owner and am having a...
Can you identify yourself, ma'am, for the record?
Certainly. My name is Donna Tatham, Tatham.
Very good, Donna. And
I'm actually calling representing several owners because no one can sit on hold for as long as I did, but I appreciate you taking my call. We're having a problem understanding the rationale for not allowing timeshare owners to use their units. I know that the governor exempted timeshares from his order, and I mean, we pay taxes, we have to pay whether we use our unit or not. I mean, we're not renters. People have the option of getting their money back if they rent a unit on the beach, or they have the option of not paying money to use a unit on the beach. We don't have that option. We're paying out a lot of money for those units, whether we use them or not. And the fact that we are property owners, we do pay taxes, we are paying that money whether it's used or not. We would really appreciate it if you would change your minds and please allow us to use our units immediately. And if not, can you please explain the rationale behind that? Because that's what we're having trouble understanding.
Okay, Donna, well, that'll be addressed shortly, I presume, but I can't.
I hope so.
Okay, thank you for your call.
Is that going to be addressed today?
I don't know. That's all. That depends on the council members if someone brings it up in their items. But I can't get into a dialogue with you. So I appreciate your input and.
All right, I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye. Okay, anybody else in there, Madam Clerk?
That's all, Mayor. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, the next item, and there's no emails or et cetera, et cetera. Okay. All right, next item is the town manager's items. Roger.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, I shared with you the executive order that came out of the Lee County Manager's Office with regard to extension of premises associated with the limitation on inside restaurant activity from the county manager. Mr. Hadalt addressed it early in the meeting also. I was going to bring up whether or not the council wanted to set some criteria or whether the council just wanted me to exercise discretion on a case-by-case basis based on the physical limitations in front of a particular restaurant or not. So I don't know if you want to give me some feedback as regard to that right now.
Well,
if not, I'll move on to my next item.
Let's just comment on that for 1 second here. As far as I'm concerned, Roger, I mean, I would leave it in your hands as to use your discretion. If there's certain blowback from one or whoever, I'm sure we'll hear about it. So unless the rest of the council has something else in mind, I would just assume let the manager handle these details.
Mr. Chair, the only question I have is probably for John. There's been some business owners that have brought up the alcohol portion of this, being able to serve if it gets extended out to bigger areas. Can you opine on that?
My understanding is that what has been, yes, that can be done, but it's still subject to the 50% rule that they have to, their alcohol sales have to be 50% or less than their overall volume. Otherwise, the governor's order prohibits the sale of alcohol in that area.
I think what Mr. Alves was asking about is that extension of people's alcohol license outside the area that's been already been approved is subject to council approval. I believe is that correct, Mr. Allers?
Yes. Thank you for clarifying.
Thank you. So the way I'm interpreting this, and Mr. Herron, if you have some insight on this, I'd appreciate it, that I could make those decisions subject to council approval at the next meeting, ratification, if you will, since the council prepared and approved an emergency order delegating emergency powers to myself during this incident. So if not, it would be no different than today. They would still have to apply and wait for the next council meeting. It's just really a question of whether we make them wait for the council meeting or allow me to give them an interim approval subject to council blessing at the next council meeting.
Go ahead, Rexanne.
My comment was going to be that I'm comfortable with giving Roger some latitude. However, I believe the difference between us and Lee County is Lee County gave extensions out into parking lots. I would not be comfortable extending people further out on the sandy beach to serve. I didn't know if anybody had considered that or not.
Yeah, I think one of the challenges is I looked at the various municipalities over the weekend in the county. There's a lot of variety in terms of how they're implementing this. And I think I like the mayor's suggestion again of sort of ceding authority to Roger to look at it on a case-by-case basis. There may be a situation where they need to go out a few feet on the beach, but if it has to be reasonable, it has to be maintain public health, public safety, et cetera, be sensitive to the environment. So, I mean, I think again, if we see the discretion to Roger and he looks at this on a case-by-case basis, that might be better than us setting specific parameters that may not make sense for certain businesses and may make sense for others. So I like this concept of ceding him the authority to use his discretion to, and again, hopefully in a generous way where it makes sense to help these folks along.
Jim, you may not be aware of the fact that years ago, the council already extended these people to serve alcohol further out onto the beach than they were previously allowed to do. So they're already, in my opinion,
out there.
They're already out there.
Yeah. Well, what I said at the beginning of the meeting, what I suggested is to give this authority to the town manager just during the phase 1 period of the governor's order. So it would end, but these are very unique times and they involve unique challenges. And if we need to be flexible enough to allow people to do what makes sense, again, consistent with public health, public safety. And I don't want to limit options where it's just temporary in nature. Because you got to remember these restaurants in particular, they only have 25% occupancy inside. So if they can offset that in a way outside where their public health options are greater, that may make the difference between survival and failure. So I just don't want to. I hate to set parameters where there may be unique situations that really make sense, and allowing the town manager that flexibility to look at them individually, I think could be helpful.
Well, and I think the manager knows which ones have been extended prior out onto the sand, and also the other side of it is we're only talking about restaurants right now. The bars are still closed down by the governor's order, so those haven't even opened up yet. So I think I mean I agree that I'm willing to cede that authority to Roger and his staff, and they're the ones best equipped to handle these on a case-by-case basis. As I say, if there's any objection, I'm sure we'll hear about it.
Okay. I would add a couple things. I'd like to see maybe retail establishments get the same kind of treatment, just to be able to put some. I've talked to some, and it certainly doesn't work for everybody. And there's not that many areas where there's town right outside that allows them to do some business, so they wouldn't necessarily get if people aren't going inside their shops. I think the 25% rate for retail is not that much of a deal killer like it is for a restaurant. The other thing is I want to make sure that we're still extending. We're extending the sign ordinance so that people can continue to put up more signs. And I think that we still want to encourage takeout business, because there's still a lot of people who are not, like, and I'm included, who are not going into stores, and make sure we keep the parking spot allocated for restaurants for pickup. And another thing to consider that might help people out, since what we're essentially doing, right, is we're trying to extend the space that these restaurants have so they can have more people with proper social distancing. And take their inside space and pick their outside space and make it like their in space was. I wonder if anybody thinks it would be a good idea to allow outside music, live music that we have not had in the past, just for this period of time.
I would support that.
I would support that too, Bill.
Yeah, that'd be fine. That'd be fine. You got a couple of gigs planned, Bill? No, just kidding. And I agree with the retail aspect. As far as putting items outside and anything that can help. A lot of this is going to be moot, I think, in another month or so after we get into the rainy season. But anyhow, it may or may not be, I suppose. But so anyhow, if we can leave it in the manager's discretion, that would be the best. Town manager, you have anything else to add?
Yes, I just wanted to, just as a follow-up on that discussion, sure, the word will circulate about this conversation the council just had, and I encourage people to contact us before they assume they could do something, and we will review it promptly and get back to them, but please do not just assume they could do what they want to do. So with that, I'll go on to the next item on my list, which is I want to remind the council that the stormwater and water rate analysis is underway. We're expecting the consultant's report back at the end of the month. And I'm sure that that in and of itself will generate a protracted conversation by the council. So we will, right now we're scheduled to bring it to the council for the first MP in June, but if you decide you want to devote a meeting to that, please let us know and we'll be glad to schedule a meeting for that subject matter alone.
Okay, thank you. Does that conclude your remarks?
It does. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Town attorney.
Thank you, Mayor. I want to briefly go back to the first discussion that the manager was having regarding, and the council was having regarding this outdoor seating issue. I understand and appreciate you desiring to provide the discretion to the manager, but I would strongly recommend, based upon that direction, that I work with the manager to draft some basic guides to put before you at the MNP and then ultimately ratified at the next council meeting because of the concept of unbridled discretion. You cannot delegate authority to a staff member without some guideposts. And based upon everything that we've seen, I've already discussed with the manager, I'm sure we'll be able to develop that and put that before you at the MNP. Nothing further.
For Thursday?
Yes.
Okay. That sounds reasonable. Are there any liability issues that we have to be looking at too, or?
No, several of the rules or guidance that I've seen do provide for separation between the seating area and the remainder of the parking area to minimize conflicts with cars, and we would do the same.
Okay, good. Anything else, Mr. Attorney?
Nothing further.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, council members' items and reports. We'll start with you, Councilman Veach.
Is there, John, is there any need for an executive meeting? Are there any lawsuits or anything that are developing that we need to be made aware of?
We just received, over the weekend, I received correspondence from one individual involved in litigation with the town, represented by outside counsel. And I will be bringing that to you, and as things normalize, we'll schedule an executive session. It's the Jameson matter. Other than that, no, there's nothing else that's currently pending that, in my opinion, requires an executive session at this point in time. But if you have a particular case that you're concerned about, please reach out to me and we can discuss it.
Yeah, I'm not really aware of what cases are pending. The other thing is, okay, now I'm sure, I don't know if you want to talk about this now or save it for the MNP meeting, but delving into this timeshare issue, even if we don't make a vote, because it's complicated, and all of us have been seeing lots and lots of emails pertaining to it. Is that something you want to discuss now, or are we going to wait until Thursday?
I would be willing to do it on Thursday, and with the hope of resolving it. Does anyone else agree?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I'd be okay with discussing it today to meet, but if Thursday is the will of council, I'm okay with that as well.
I'm sure it's going to be a lengthy conversation
I think we need to discuss it today.
today. Okay, Jim Adderholt, you're going to break the tie on this today or tomorrow or Thursday issue here.
Yeah, I mean, if we have the time today, I try to respect the mayor's direction. If we could do it on Thursday, that's fine. If we need to do it today, I'm fine. But if we're actually voting on it, I'm happy to do it today. I mean, but whatever makes sense.
Okay, there's the direction. I guess we're going to talk about this today. I thought I was going to bring this meeting in under 4 hours, but I don't think we will now. Anyhow, okay, who wants to begin the discussion of the timeshares? And again, it's not on the agenda, and I don't know that we should be taking action on it. To tell you the truth, that would go against the normal practices of the town council. That being said,
It is the review of an emergency order. I was under the impression that we had the authority to deal with our emergency orders at any time without it being on the agenda.
Well, you know, if that's your wish, then let's go ahead and discuss it then.
Well, should I start off since I'm still in my members' items? Okay, now, you know, we got timeshares they're not really like condos, and they're not really like hotels. And there's difference between both of them. I've been working hard talking to a lot of people, trying to figure out how to let people access their timeshares in a way that would not present a risk. I understand that they are owners, they are owner with a deed, but by nature and as far as the virus is concerned, they're transient since they're only around for a week. So every week, the whole group of people changes. The other thing
I've got to interrupt you just because they don't necessarily change every week. There are people who own multiple weeks and come for some a month at a time.
We're the exception.
Right, but if they do come for a month at a time, then they're not really. If they're more than the time we have in the emergency declaration,
they're not under the
fines transient, and they're not under the rules.
Exactly.
Well, there are some that are 2 weeks, for example, or 3 weeks.
Yeah, but that's the basic model. And to say that there is turnover. There's more turnover than there is at a regular condo, and there may be less turnover than there is at a hotel. But hotels are staffed differently. So hotels have the staff to go through and do the regular cleaning of common things like elevators and railings and this kind of stuff. Those are the challenges. But then the condos also they don't have the same the timeshares don't have the same common areas that a hotel does. They don't have the restaurants usually. The big crux is like elevators and particularly pool decks. That it seems like the ones that I talk to don't really have anywhere enough near the volume of space or the area of space in a pool deck to be handled all the visitors all the owners coming in at the same time. And when I got down to it, I got in order to open timeshares, it would be a couple of things that I would really want to see happen to maintain people's safety and the safety of their guests. The other thing that the timeshares can't do is hotels can leave the rooms vacant for days. If they're at a lower occupancy, then they can have a hotel room sit idle for 3 days, which is a good way to let the virus expire. But what I would recommend is if we do want to consider opening timeshares, is that all common rooms be closed, and that the pool deck either be metered by signs saying only so many people are there, or assign people time slots when they can go to the pool so that it doesn't get overcrowded. If they cannot demonstrate social distancing in the pool deck, then the pool should be closed. Those are the big things. And additionally, maybe an additional fee for cleaning, because like I said, they don't have the staff at these, they're not really fully staffed. So if they need to have someone in there to be safe, who's going to be cleaning the elevators every hour or so, there may be an additional fee that the manager should be able to charge to the owners during this time.
Anybody want to add to
that? Yeah, I'll go next, Mr. Chair, if you don't mind.
Go right ahead.
As we said earlier, we've all been, or at least I haven't, been inundated with timeshare emails. And I want everyone to know that I have read every single one of them, and I do sympathize with everyone. But I wanted to give a little context as to what was in my mind when I decided at the last meeting to vote the way that I voted. Many people out there may not know, but of the cases that we had of the COVID-19 on our island, 4 of them, as my understanding, were in one building, one condo building. That's what was running through my head when I made my decision. So all that being said, I'm willing to revisit it. I'm willing to change my vote if we were to follow what the governor excluded them in his order. I went back and went through it all again. But in all the emails that I've been receiving, they've all wanted to compare themselves to the hotels. Why can the hotels do it, but we can't? So with that, I would say if we do decide to open them up today, I would suggest we do it on the 15th, as we've put on the other vacation rentals and the hotels.
Well, I think the difference between the timeshares and the hotels was already stated, but I'll reiterate it. The timeshares don't have the staff that the hotels have. Plus, the hotels have already stated, the larger ones anyhow, that they're going to space their people. In other words, they'll have an empty room between rooms and so forth. Space them on the floors that they have and so forth. And they have the staff to constantly clean. And then they have other provisions about not going in there to clean until the guest leaves. In other words, they won't have the daily cleans, but they'll wait till the end and so forth. So there are a lot of technical advantages that the hotels, just because of their sizes and their staffing, that they have over the timeshares. And I'm of a mind, and I sympathize with the timeshare owners. I truly do, and I don't relish the thought of taking away people's property rights and everything. But they're not the same. They're not the same at all. They're not the same at all. They don't. The turnover is such that the hotels can monitor themselves. They can regulate themselves by virtue of the little staff that they have management companies. But the management companies aren't. They're not around all the time. So I would have to really have some evidence that these people are really going to stand up and monitor the situation. Otherwise, in my mind, and again, I'm sympathetic to these folks, but in my mind, this is like, I don't know. It's just, if it's unregulated and we can't enforce it, then how the heck do we know what's going to be going on? And I agree with if it wasn't for the numbers, the amount of turnover that's going to be taking place, then if it was just a typical condo situation, but it's not. Timeshare is a totally different animal. So with that, I'll open it back up to the floor. And Jim Adderholt, did you have a comment that you wanted to make?
Yeah, I'm really listening and learning as we listen. I'm happy to consider some of Bill's suggestions in order to get a broader consensus on this. But again, I don't have anything additional to add at this time.
Okay. All right. Well, the question here is, I mean, we can make suggestions and so forth, and I just don't know how, Roger, that we would be able to enforce it. I just don't. I mean, we can make the suggestions, and if I thought that the timeshare buildings and the management companies and the owners were going to follow all these, and I'd say fantastic, but I don't know. I don't know that that's going to happen. So Roger, tell me how something like this could possibly be enforced.
I don't know that it can, because at least not by us, because we can't go trouncing through private property to see what's going on per se. I mean, we could react to reports and try to investigate, but would be a real challenge that I don't know for sure I could outline with it. We would be doing A, B, C, and D, other than if we received a report, we do our best to respond and investigate and see if we can determine if the report is valid, and if it is, notify the property that it's in violation of some aspect of governor's executive orders or our local code. But it would be a difficult challenge. I think that the council is going to get some clear understanding from the governor when he decides to remove his ban on vacation rentals. So I know that people are pressing you for an answer today, but my suggestion would be that they ride with the vacation rentals. You're going to get a clear understanding from at least a state perspective that these more frequent turnovers in lesser controlled circumstances are, from a health perspective, are ready to proceed.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Okay.
I'm waiting to hear a motion from either Bill or Dan.
I will, well, just a couple of questions first before I get to a motion. Now, Roger, when someone rents out a timeshare, they have to follow all the rules of the short-term rental ordinances of the town, right? They have to have a registration number if they're doing a short-term rental by renting out their timeshare to somebody else.
Well, I think the initial conversation was about letting the owners use their weeks. Are we now migrating into letting other people or them trade their weeks? Is that?
I think he's working under the assumption that that's going to happen. Am I correct, Bill?
Yeah, that's something that if we're going to do this, I mean, part of making this work in a safe way is we know we can't just, you can't just arbitrarily say, Bob, you can have your place and Jane, you can't. But the idea that, right now the rentals are not allowed, but if we make sure that the rentals don't happen, that'll reduce the densities for the owners coming. I also understand that there's some that rent a lot and some buildings don't rent much at all, that they're disable. But the reason I'm bringing that up is that I'm trying to figure out things we can do for the management companies to make this easy for them to regulate. Because it's it's easy to close a common room. It'd be easy for them to say that if someone is checking in and they're not the owner on record, that crosses a line. So a way that they only give the keys to the owner on record when they're checking in.
Counselor, I think the management companies will analyze whatever decisions the council reaches, and they'll decide themselves what they're going to do with respect to whether they're sufficient to open or not open, etc. But I think that if the council's inclined to proceed, I would absolutely recommend that you at least initially limit it to the unit owners and their families, which I believe is defined as their blood relatives only, relatives by blood only. And from there, it becomes a rental situation in my mind that parallels the vacation rentals.
So basically, people that are on the deed and their immediate family, their blood members of their family. Is that right, Roger? Is that what
if you were inclined to the argument regarding I paid for a unit, I should be allowed to use it. If you're moved by that argument, yes.
Yeah, I think even having the distinction of a blood relative muddies the water. Because how do you verify that?
You don't, but that's already in town code, I believe, in terms of finding what a family is and who could use a unit.
Okay. then would okay, I'll go ahead and put this in the term of a motion. That because the other thing we really have to make sure is that the managers of these units have time to get the proper PPE they need to be prepared for people coming. That if we try to make this happen too fast, they're not going to be ready. So I would make a motion that we allow the owners of record to use their timeshares under the conditions that the management companies can acquire and use PPE for their workers cleaning, that they have a accelerated cleaning program that they may be able to charge a fee to the owners for, that and that they close all common rooms that are not necessarily for the transit of people around the facility. So this means card rooms, kitchens, community rooms, things like this, and that the pool deck be strictly monitored for social distancing, and if the guests or the owners are non-compliant, that the pool decks will be closed.
Is there a second to?
Is there? Did you say an effective date, Bill?
I would say the same as the hotels, the 15th, because we need some time for the managers to be able to get ready to reopen.
I'll second the motion.
It's been moved and seconded. Discussion. Further discussion.
If I may, Mayor.
Yes, John.
The last order that you all approve already says that. The prohibition on rentals and the prohibition of occupancy on timeshares will lift on the 15th already. The question, as I understand it, and the motion that was made at the last meeting by the Vice Mayor was to lift the prohibition on owner occupancy of timeshares immediately, so those could be used in the same manner as a home or a condominium unit. As currently written, the existing order this council has approved will lift the restrictions, all restrictions on timeshares, rental or owner occupancy on the 15th already.
Well, it's been changed today. It's been further conditioned.
Well, yeah, subject to the council agreeing to that those additional conditions of PPE and common elements. Yes, but those aren't being. I just want to point out that those aren't being applied prospectively to hotels or short-term rentals. The order just says they have to observe social distancing.
Well, I think we all recognize that this is a different animal completely.
Okay.
I have to say I'm puzzled by what John is saying, because I'm believing all of these people who have been emailing me have been told by somebody in the town that they can't get in until the end of June, is the impression that I've been receiving. So I don't know.
I believe that's because they're still reading the original order.
Okay, could you refer me to what order you're talking about, John, so I could look at it?
Yeah, it's give me a moment.
Madam Vice Mayor, while John's looking that up for you, if you recall, we originally said that there was no lodging till the end of June, which was a wide umbrella that encompassed the hotels, the vacation rentals, and the timeshares. And then more recently, the council wound that back.
Well, no reservations allowed to be taken.
Correct.
I'm sorry, Roger. Go ahead, Roger, continue. I'm sorry.
I believe that's the point of confusion of some of the people who are emailing us, that they didn't pick up that change, that their new current deadline is May 15th. I believe that's what John's trying to say.
That's emergency regulations number 6.
Thank you.
That is correct. Looking at it, I have just pulled it up. It's number 6.
Okay, is there any further discussion on the motion?
I need a moment to read, please.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, just
Vice Mayor, page 4 of 5.
Paragraph 4.
See, I was under the impression that when we moved the reservation date up to the 15th, that it did not apply to the timeshares.
It applies to everything in the first paragraph of the order, which includes timeshares.
I'm now seeing it in the order, but I didn't remember that we said that at the time that we did it.
That was my understanding. That's how we drafted the document accordingly.
My recollection of that discussion was all about hotels and not timeshares. So I see that the word is in there. So what we're telling folks is that they're allowed to come to their timeshares starting the 15th. Is that what you're saying?
Correct, because the paragraph hold on, where's
I'm seeing in number 2, it says timeshares. So
correct.
I said, I didn't remember that being part of the conversation. I don't see any need for the motion at this point. I guess I would withdraw my second because they can come, it's the same date, they can come.
That is correct.
Well, I think, okay, then how about a new motion, Bill, to amend it, to add your conditions?
Well, I'll withdraw my motion and then create a new one, if that's.
Okay.
That's perfect.
Yeah. Okay, so then the motion would be that the timeshares will be allowed to open like the president ordinance says, but under the condition that the managers have PPE for their employees, that it's open to the owners of record, that the management has the authority to do extra cleaning services and charge the owners, and that common rooms that are not necessary for the transit of people around, including kitchens, community rooms, game rooms, will be closed, that social distancing will be maintained in all common areas, including the pool deck, and if social distancing is not maintained in the pool decks, and the pools will be closed.
Mayor, if I may, if that's the will of the council, we'll make that happen. However, I would point out again that the existing order number 6 that you all approved as of the 15th treats timeshares subject to the new in the same manner as hotels and potentially short-term rentals, assuming the governor lifts his order in that respect. The point being is that it allows for rentals. You are now modifying that to say only with respect to timeshares, they can only be owner occupied, that the timeshares will not be able to rent. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Is there a problem with that, John? Do you see problems with that?
I do, because at this point in time, as of the 15th, we're treating all rentals, all transient occupancies the same. We've been treating them up to now all the same, including timeshares, and now we're going to treat them differently and separate out timeshares.
Mr.
Well, sorry, go ahead, Jim.
Yeah, I just wanted to add on to what John just referenced. We're in essence, one of the things that we've been trying to do, or I've been trying to do, at least philosophically, is try to not fall into this pitfall where we're pitting short-term rentals against hotels versus timeshares and trying to treat everyone equally. The governor's proclamation created that separation by not allowing short-term rentals. But the council's proclamation currently treats everyone equally as of May 15th. And I think that's a good place to be. I'm very concerned that we're going to treat each one of these sectors differently from each other. And I've got real concerns based on that philosophy with respect to this motion.
Mayor, I don't know that this motion has been seconded.
No, it hasn't. We're trying to craft a new one here, but I don't know whether we're going to get there or not.
And just for the point of conversation, I'm sorry to interrupt you, Mr. Mayor, but
That's
you
okay.
know, really they are different. I mean, my philosophy, I understand, Jim, you know, simplicity is a wonderful thing when you can have it. But the kind of I want people to have as much business as they can, as safe as possible. And so hotels and vacation rentals and timeshares all have different potential problems, right? We know what hotels can do. We haven't talked about, are we going to, I think the way it's crafted now, that on the 15th, we don't have any occupancy requirements for hotels. If you have a vacation rental, if someone has an 8-bedroom house, and I've rented those myself, where you have family get-togethers, everybody's sharing everything, those probably need to be treated differently. Because you know, you can't say a hotel do 50% occupancy. Well, you can say it to a hotel, but you can't say that to a timeshare because it depends on the owners. And you can't say that to a vacation rental because if someone has one unit, you know, one rental unit, how can you impose a 50% occupancy limit on that? So really, you can't treat all these different entities the same because they're all different birds.
True that.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
Not to make it any more difficult, but basically, as it was stated earlier with the timeshare, so you potentially have each owner owning a week, so you have 52 owners. Someone may own multiple weeks, as the Vice Mayor pointed out, but for each unit, you basically have 52 owners. So just bear that in mind as you deliberate further.
Yeah, let me get the numbers of it. Okay, so we're back to whether we can condition the timeshare units differently. You know, I suppose we could try and condition these. All of the correspondence that I've gotten and you all have gotten have come from the owners themselves that are dying to use their weeks, and so there's some sort of a compliance there. But so now the question is whether we want to go ahead and limit to those owners and put a few other restrictions on it that we don't necessarily do to other short-term rentals or not. So it seems to me that if we pass something today that allowed these owners to get into to use their timeshares, that they'd be thrilled with that. They'd be thrilled with that. So so it's a matter of.
Mayor, I was under that misimpression myself, but what John is saying, they can get in now on the 15th. We don't need to change that.
No. Well,
now we're just talking about whether Bill wants to put additional restrictions on them than we're putting on other folks.
Whether we want to condition it, yeah.
Well, we have no restrictions on anything on the 15th, right? As is written now, we said people can the hotels can take bookings except for the governor's vacation rental prohibition. There'll be nothing. I mean, if anybody wanted to go to the hotel, wanted to go to 100% occupancy on the 15th, if of course they could, they would be allowed that. As we're stating now, we have no other restrictions on anything.
Well, Mr. Mayor, if I may, the mayor's task force has put forth best practices and recommendations, and the chamber is prepared to take pledges who are from those entities that are willing to take that pledge of best practices. And again, it's sort of a voluntary self-compliance dynamic that trusts the individual businesses to do the right thing. And then obviously the marketplace will hold them accountable. If it's an entity that's packing folks in and aren't respecting CDC guidelines, et cetera, the marketplace will respond accordingly, and they won't be patronized. So I think the original concept here was to have the individual businesses through this task force of the chamber set forth these best practices. So we do have some guidelines in place. They're just not mandates, as I understand.
Well, that's true, Jim. But that was more for the hotels and the restaurants and the bars and the retail stores. We didn't really get into the issue of timeshare, because timeshare, as we've noted already, that goes to full occupancy on the 15th. I mean, there's no waiting around or anything like it. They're gonna be occupied, you know. So
I would disagree with that, Mayor. I don't think they're going to necessarily be occupied. People can't get flights. People are going to decide to stay home because
let's agree that they have the possibility of being
same way. I don't think the hotels are going to go to 100% either.
Yeah, okay, but I think we could more reasonably be agreed that those weeks will be more occupied than the hotels. They don't have to fly down. They can drive. They can get in the car and drive if they want. So anyhow, it's a matter of whether we want to put further conditions on these folks or not, and assuming that they're going to open up on the 15th like everybody else.
And just a note on what Rexanne said, if you know, and if it's true, if you put a limit on the occupancy of a hotel and they're not going to get that business anyway, then it really doesn't hinder them at all. But it's really important to get it ahead so they know what they can vote for. I understand what Jim is saying, but if that was the case, if everyone behaved responsibly, then we wouldn't have needed any of these measures from the governor, from anybody over the course of time. Right. Now some people are more aware now than they were, but I also see a lot of people who are still, the mindset that this is just the flu and that they can do whatever they want. So I think we need some kind of structure, and if it's light enough, if the business doesn't come back, then this won't really be a hindrance. But I think that we have 3 different segments, and I think they have 3 different risk factors, and that it would be good to handle them all separately through at least this phase 1 place. Because I am hesitant, having just throwing open the gates on the 15th, regardless of how many people are running through it, will cause some risk. And the fact that was pointed out that, and I heard the same thing, Dan, that 4 people or 3 or 4 people were from the same building that came down with COVID on the island, and they were a member of like a card playing group or something, so they had some interactions. If that would have been a timeshare, that might have propagated to many, many more people.
Exactly. Jim?
And Bill, those were my reservations at when we adapted this order. That's exactly what I was thinking about. But I don't know if we necessarily need to change what we've already decided. But I believe you've already made a motion.
The motion is waiting for a second. And if it doesn't get a second, then it's probably not going to get a vote, I assume.
Could you restate your motion, please, Bill?
Okay.
Oh, was everything, all the conditions without the occupancy?
It's, the conditions are that the staff has adequate PPE, which is personal protective equipment, that it's open to the owners on record, that the management has the right to provide extra cleaning services if necessary and charge the owners for that cost, and that common rooms be closed common areas are closed that are not necessary for the transit of people, like hallways and elevators and whatnot. And finally, that the members follow social distancing protocols everywhere, including in the pool and on the beach. And if they cannot do so in the pools be closed.
I'll second your motion. Discussion, further discussion. Hearing none, I'll call the question. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Nay. Nay.
That's 3 nays and 2 ayes. Okay, that fails. Is there an alternative? Does anyone have an alternative to offer? No.
The alternative is just everything opens up.
Yeah, exactly.
On the 50th.
Yeah, exactly.
Depending on what the governor does, I assume vacation rentals applies to their rentals as well.
Right. Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to, I understand everyone's very anxious to open up on the 15th. we've been very careful, and the people who've contacted the town, that we've been telling them that's subject to review and reconsideration by the council if you deem it appropriate. So, people sometimes will try to take your conversation to box you in. I just want to make it clear to everybody that that's the current date, subject to review and change by this council if you deem it appropriate.
I have a question for John.
Go right ahead.
My impression is that the governor's order allowed all of these things except the short-term rentals. Does our order allow short-term rentals to start on the 15th, John?
Yes, because I believe, I'll check the dates, but I'm 99.9% sure that the governor's order regarding short-term rentals prohibitions is scheduled to lapse before then. Alternatively, I would anticipate that as part of phase 2 of the opening up process, that the governor will issue an additional executive order clarifying hotels, motels, short-term rentals before the 15th. We may have to revisit the issue before then, if he doesn't.
I was under the impression that his order for short-term rentals lasted longer than the 15th. So
I'll check. But the anticipation, based upon all the information we had available to us before when he was issuing his phase 1 order, is that the phase 2 order dealing with these issues, the hotels, motels, short-term rentals, timeshares, would be forthcoming prior to the 15th, and that was you all wanted to try and get ahead of the curve, because that's what other municipalities and other jurisdictions in the county were already doing. We're setting the date for accepting reservations. But obviously the governor's order on short-term rentals supersedes any of that.
Well, I was asking about that because there seems to be this contradiction. Sometimes the governor's order supersedes us, and sometimes it says that localities are allowed to make stricter orders. So I want to make sure that if the governor is not allowing short-term rentals, say until June 1st, that our order doesn't go ahead and allow that.
Correct. That's our understanding. That's how we're dealing with it.
Okay.
Madam Vice or Mayor or Mr. Mayor, just a quick question on that. I was under the impression that the governor's order on short-term rentals did not have an expiration date, and it's unclear as to when that will be rescinded. Is that wrong, John?
I'm pulling it up, but I believe that it's tied to the governor's order 2052.
I think they called it vacation rentals.
The vacation rental one is tied to 2052, which is the original declaration of emergency. So when that expires, the short-term rental prohibition will also expire.
What's the expiration date on that, John?
I'm looking for it.
Okay.
Since we're just looking for clarification of something, Mayor, maybe we could go ahead and discuss some other things, and John could clarify for us without the pressure of us waiting.
Yeah, I was just wondering, Bill, did you have any other items under your items and reports?
I'm a little concerned of, the implication was, and we voted to allow hotels to take reservations starting May 15th. That was allowed them to get bookings, but not necessarily to open. The idea was they could do this, but then if the date got pushed back, they would have to give people a refund or reschedule. It seems like now we are defaulting to saying that everything is going to be open on the 15th, and we are putting no further restrictions on it. None. I think this is reckless. I think that we are not people. We're not. It's not normal. We're not at normal. And I am concerned that we're taking a reckless path by just opening everything up on May 15th. So that's the end of my items.
Okay. John, do you have something yet or not yet?
According to the order 20-111, the governor extended executive order 2087 until May 4th, which is today, this morning. I have not yet seen a subsequent order saying that it's otherwise been extended.
John, order 20-1112 says that it's order 2087, the prohibition on vacation rentals, and executive order 2087 remains in effect for the duration of this order.
Yeah, I've seen that. I don't know. My webpage does not show that one.
So section 3, part D.
29. Okay. Sorry. I'm sorry. That is correct. Again, to the point that the vice mayor made, the orders sometimes are seem to contradict themselves. But that is correct. The short-term rental prohibition is in effect until Executive Order 20-1112 is either lifted or extended, as the case may be.
It was going to come in a future phase, one of his future phases.
Yeah, and again, to my prior comment I go back to is the anticipation is that prior to the 15th that a phase 2 order dealing with this issue that we've been discussing will be issued, and everyone was anticipating that would be the date. Your direction was specifically to not put the town's businesses at a competitive disadvantage, to incorporate that date as well, modify that date, which we did. There was a specific discussion about that, and I recall the manager asking, just to be clear, not only can they begin to accept reservations, but the date that reservations can go into effect or stays can take place is in fact on the 15th, and the response by the council was yes.
Okay.
If you want to change that, then certainly we can.
Any comments on that?
Mr. Mayor, just with respect to what Councilor Veach just said, in terms of it being reckless to have everything open on the 15th, let's keep in mind that the governor has allowed hotels to already open and function and take reservations and take guests today, presently. So, and we as a council decided to not allow that until the 15th. So I think the term reckless is a bit of a stretch, particularly when it comes to the hotels, because they're already open and they can function in most other areas, and we've prohibited that. So I was against that, just for the record. But having said that, it certainly shows that we're not being reckless, I would think. And the short-term rental dynamic is still a little bit up in the air as to when the governor will opine on when those will be allowed. So there's still quite a bit of uncertainty out there. And I think the fact that we're having our M&P meeting on Thursday is fortuitous, and we'll be able to continue to look at this and discuss it and hopefully make some progress.
Well, it was the will of the council to hammer this out today, the timeshare issue today. So that's what.
Mr. Mayor, just to having hindsight being 2020, we probably should have listened to you and talked about this on Thursday.
Thank you, but here we are. So, what are we going to do? Anybody?
I was under a complete misimpression. I will admit that I was wrong. I didn't realize that the timeshare issue was taken care of as of the 15th. I'll admit I was wrong. I'm happy with going forward with discussions about other issues.
About other issues regarding the timeshare or other
Going
issues?
forward with our council member items. I'm done discussing this for today, personally.
Is everyone else in agreement there?
Yeah,
It's fine, Mr. Mayor.
Bill?
Well, yeah, we're not making any headway, so you know, I threw a motion out there that I thought would help protect some people, and it didn't pass that's the will of the council, so we can move on.
Well, I appreciate your efforts, as you know, because I seconded and I was on the same page with you. But anyhow, we've taken the long way around on this one, but we can talk about it some more, and we will, I'm sure. So let's see, who's next? Dan Allers, did I call on you yet for council member items?
No, we covered what I wanted to discuss.
Okay. Jim Adderholt, have I called on you?
No, just two quick things, Mr. Mayor. This being Hurricane Preparedness Week, May 3rd through the May 9th, I have a question for Roger, and I don't think I'm putting Roger on the spot, but I had a number of residents ask me this question. We have hurricane reentry passes for 2018 to 2019, and Roger, I'm sure you've already said this, but just since it's Hurricane Preparedness Week, are these good for 2020, or do folks need to come in and get a new one? And if so,
we're not planning on changing them for now.
So the 2018, 2019 purple hurricane reentry passes are good for 2020.
Yes, sir.
Excellent. Thank you.
I think if I can add, Jim, just the message is the purple one. The purple one.
Right, the purple one right here. Yep.
That's it. Okay, thank you.
Very good.
Just to clarify, we don't want a slew of people feeling like they have to come to town hall, get a newer one, and social distancing problems that would create. So
I totally understand. Just wanted to make sure we had clarification, and again, encourage folks to do this, and you can still get this purple one for 2020 if you don't already have it, and certainly encourage folks to do that if they haven't done so already. And Roger, just another quick question that a couple of residents asked me, the beach vendor question. Are the beach vendors able to go forth and do their business? I know we as a council haven't opined on that yet, but I was curious as to how you're handling that.
Our environmental staff is putting together some information for me. They're following up with some of the state agencies as require, as appropriate to, and I should have an answer, which I will share via email with the council and the vendors.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Vice Mayor, did I call on you?
No, actually, my item kind of overlaps with Mr. Adderholt's. I had received an email from Sharon Faircloth, who I have always found to be a very responsible beach chair vendor. And she had sent to me actually a plan to show how they could assist with social distancing by placing the chairs farther apart. And seeing that seems to make sense to me, that they can assist with the social distancing by doing that. I would encourage the council to, again, give Roger the latitude to move forward with that. I would be in favor of saying that Roger can require a diagram, much like Sharon had sent to me, to show how they're going to space their chairs on their various properties, etc. And I will forward the one that I got from Sharon to everybody now that it's been out there in a meeting, and I'll forward it to Roger as well. I would hope the rest of the council agrees with me that we give Roger this latitude to deal with these, because the properties are all different. So he's going to have to look at this on a case-by-case basis, the same way he would with allowing the restaurants to use part of their parking lot or whatever.
I agree.
Agree.
Just for the clarify the record, I did receive the email from Sharon at 7 something this morning, and
okay.
And I've already forwarded to our environmental staff to review and give me benefit of their thoughts about it. So that's underway as we speak.
I praise her for taking the time to go ahead and bring us something instead of us having to impose upon them. And I would encourage the restaurateurs and other businesses to do the same. Each of you have a business that's differs in location and space, etc. So if you can bring a plan to Roger for him to look at, that really helps the situation and shows your good faith and intentions. I appreciate her work.
Anything else, Vice Mayor?
Thank you.
Okay. I think I called on everyone. If I haven't, speak now or forever hold your peace. I don't think I can add anything else to the conversation. We've pretty much covered all the bases, so I'll pass today. And just announce that our next regular town council meeting will be on Monday, the 18th at 9 a.m., of course. But we'll be meeting again this Thursday, May 7th, for our management and planning session at 9 a.m. And with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn today's meeting, unless there's anything else for the good of the order that anybody has to add.
Just real quick, Mr. Mayor, those are both going to be virtual meetings, correct?
Yeah, so far, as a matter of fact, that's a good point, Dan. There was a bit of discussion with the staff, what they were trying to work out with the speakers and so forth, and if we all wanted to get back in the town hall and Rexanne still wanted to stay away, how we could dial her in and so forth. But apparently that's still being worked out by the staff, and as soon as they come up with something, why, I'm sure we'll all know about it. But,
just to clarify, that's a day-by-day thing as we try to work through the technological issues. But for Thursday, it's going to be a Zoom meeting, and we'll let everyone know if we can offer an alternative for the next regular council meeting.
Very good. Okay, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
So moved.
Moved, seconded, thirded. Okay. Thank you all very much. Have a great day, everyone, and see you Thursday.
Right.
Bye.